Welcome to Alpha 103, Advanced Grids with Alpha Anywhere. In this course, we are going to take a deep dive into the Alpha Anywhere grid component. The Alpha Anywhere grid component is a very mature and powerful component. Over the years, it has built up an incredible level of built-in, no programming functionality that you can use to create wonderful user interfaces for your users. This course covers a broad array of capabilities that will enable you to quickly and easily implement your Alpha Anywhere web applications. We will continue to use the example company Alpha Sports. In this training, we will add powerful formatting and data display capabilities to your Alpha Sports system to make it easier for your users to work with and analyze data in the grid component. The topics we'll be covering in this training will be grouping records in the grid component and adding summary information to the groups, formatting your grid based on the data in the grid, adding row and field level color formatting to bring life to the grid data, adding Alpha Anywhere action buttons to the grid that allow your users to execute actions on the data in the grid, adding a checkbox control to your grid and interacting with the items you have checked on your grid, leveraging the advanced search functionality to allow your users to use business intelligence style searching, display, upload, and download image data directly inside your grid component, map your data without coding using the built-in grid mapping feature. By the end of this course, you will be able to greatly increase the utility and functionality of your Alpha Anywhere grids with a minimum of programming. These features will allow your Alpha Anywhere application to provide a better user experience and more effective experience for your users. Our first task before we start our training is to restore the Alpha 103 training files. You will have received in the course a zip file. This includes everything you need for the course. The first step is to download this to your local machine, and then let's unzip it. And the way you do that is right-click on the zip file and use the Extract All button to extract the files. In here, you select where you would like to extract that. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just extract it to my desktop. Click Select Folder and click Extract. And you'll say at this time that it has extracted those files into a regular folder and it's opened up that folder on the desktop. So let's go ahead and go into that and you'll see this is what we have here. This is your workspace / project folder called Alpha 103. We also include some avatar images, some other files that are needed for the training later on, and we also include a backup of our Alpha Sports 103 database here, so if you ever need to restore it. So the first step is we want to copy this Alpha 103 file and put it where we manage all of our projects. Thus, you always have an original copy available. So go ahead and select Alpha 103, right-click on it, and select Copy from the drop-down menu. Now what I'd like you to do is go to your Documents, and in my case, I keep all my project files under a folder called Alpha Anywhere V12. So I'll go ahead and double-click on that, and I'm into my project folder. This is again where I put all of my different workspaces. And in the white space, I'm going to right-click and select Paste. That will now paste that workspace out of here and put it here. Once we've gone ahead and done that, we have to do one more adjustment before we're ready to start our training. So at this point, I'd like you to go ahead and launch your Alpha Anywhere solution. I'm clicking that from my Start button and selecting Alpha Anywhere. I am running it in administrative mode. That's important because of the way it handles files, so I'll go ahead and say yes. And this will open up our Alpha Anywhere. You may have opened up to the news and updates. You can always then click on the workspace and tasks. So what we want to do is open an existing workspace. So go ahead and select Open an existing workspace and click OK. Now this will open up a file browser and we want to go back to that folder where we copied. So I'm going to go into Documents. I'm going to click Alpha Anywhere V12 and I'm going to find my Alpha 103 folder. And I'm going to go ahead and double click to go in there. And when you do, you will now see there's a workspace document called Alpha103, and it has the alpha icon in front of it to signify that. And click Open. This will open us into the development environment, and in my case with the Web Projects Control Panel active. If you don't see that, then go down here and make sure to select Web Projects Control Panel, and you can expand the window here to show the full window. Now the adjustment we need to do is we now have the project open up inside of Alpha, but we have a connection string built in there that's pointed to a database. And depending on your environment versus mine, it's going to be a little different. So we need to adjust that. So when you're at the Web Projects Control Panel, select from the Tools menu, Tools, Alpha DAO Connection Strings, and click there. And you'll see we have a single connection string called CONN. And this is the connection string on the right-hand side. And what we need to do is edit that. So click Edit, then click Build. And what we need to do is adjust this file name, because again, that file could be in a different location on your particular system. So go ahead and click the little folder icon next to file name. Go to your documents. Go into Alpha Anywhere v12. Go into your Alpha103 folder, and you should see our access file located at the Alpha103 level. And what you want to do is make sure it's Alpha Sports 103 and click Open. So now that puts the path to that folder right here in the file name. Once you've done that, I highly recommend to click Test Connection. This will make sure that Alpha can connect and talk to that database. And click OK. So now what we've done is we're pointed to the right location on your system, so as we move forward, we're not going to have any problems. Click OK. Click OK. And now we click Close. You have now set up and restored our workspace and also set up the connection string, so we're ready to dive into our training. A critical step we want to take before we start our training is to confirm what version of Alpha Anywhere you're running on your development machine. To do so, go up to Help, About Alpha Anywhere, and select that menu item. This will open up the Alpha Anywhere About box. Confirm that you are in version 4.5.4.6, and also double check to make sure you're on build 5445-5205. Now, if you have an earlier version, I highly recommend you upgrade to this current version and or a newer version. If you have a newer version of this, that's fine. We just want to make sure that you don't have a version that may not have all the features that will be used during the training. If indeed you do not have the most current version, you can click OK, go to Help, check for new version, and this will allow you to see what is the most current version and what build do you have. And you can also download those patches here to make sure that you have the most recent version, and or it's at least a version that's greater than the 5445_5205 that I'm using for this training. At that point, you can click Close. This is a real quick recap of where the application is at before we start our training. As we've talked about, you've been hired to work with Alpha Sports to take their current desktop system that was based on Access and move it to the web. And in doing so, increase the capabilities and features that are available to the team. Currently, the focus has been on the customer management and, more importantly, customer invoices. So, in the last training, Alpha 102, a lot of focus was put on linking different pieces of information together. Say the customer table with the customer header table with the line item details. And also in there was the fact that you could use a UX component to actually edit and work with the details. So instead of just doing everything in the grid, you could use the combination of a grid and a UX component. So let me go ahead and show you that. I'm going to view this one here. And you'll see we're using the power of the tabbed UI to open that invoice in this location. And in here, you'll notice we have up top a UX component that allows you to edit the information regarding this invoice. And then down below, we have an embedded grid that allows you to then modify and add changes to the invoice. We also focused on the best way to present that. There are different methods to do so. We also worked on advanced reporting capabilities, showing how you can create reports with images, and you can use grouping and other elements along those lines. So in this training, we're going to continue to extend that. One of the key powers of the Alpha system is the grid component. It really is the heart of the system for web solutions, specifically desktop web. And there's a lot of built-in capability that can be brought to bear to help you make your system that much more effective for the users. And our focus is going to be on the different capabilities built into the grid component to enable those. The first area we're going to focus on is the ability to use grouping and totaling within a grid to make it that much more powerful in terms of displaying information to the user. In reporting, we're very familiar with doing that kind of capabilities where you can use grouping and totaling in our reports, such as here, to show information on that. But this report is basically a static read-only format. By adding the grouping and totaling to grids, you can combine the power of the grid component with its editing capabilities with the same power of reporting. So let's get started. To do so, let's go to our Web Projects control panel, either by clicking the tab down below, or if you happen to be here, you can click on Web Projects up here and it takes you to the Web Project control panel. We're going to use the grid component, so let's use our shortcut. If you go up here to the left-hand corner, you'll notice there is a little drop-down icon, and we can immediately select grid component. If we click new, it's going to ask us to go through a series of steps. This is just a quick shortcut. So I'm going to go ahead and click grid component. As we've talked about before, there are templates that are available. You can create your own templates, but we're going to start with a blank grid component for this particular exercise. So click OK here in the right-hand corner. This will bring up our grid editor. Let's go ahead and click first Query on the left. Once you've selected Query, now we can define what connection name we want to use for this grid. So let's click Select. We have our predefined CONN, and previously we confirmed that it was connected to our proper database. So click OK. Now that we've selected our connection name, let's click Connect to actually talk to the database. The system will actually call the database, connect to it, and then prepare for the next step, which is what are we going to base our grid on. So click the Select button, and you'll notice that we have a series of items. It's including both database tables and views. If you only see tables, make sure to click up here, Views, to show that information. So as you can see, I can say, let's only see views, let's see tables. The view I would like you to use for this grid is called invoice_customer_totals. After you've selected that, click OK. And you'll notice then we have our table with our alias, and we're ready to go. The next step is to select the fields that we're going to present in the grid. So let's go to left here, click on Fields, and this will show us the fields that are in our view. It's a fairly simple view. Let's go ahead and highlight those items here, and using the right caret here, click to move those over. You could do that individually. If you happen to move over, say, row number or logical row number, you can always use the left caret to move those back and keep those out of the grid itself. Let's go ahead and save this grid, and we're going to call this customer invoice totals underscore grid. So again, customer invoice totals underscore grid. And this is kind of the naming convention I use. This grid is focused on customer information and invoice information, and it also kind of tells what it's doing. The underscore grid allows us at the Windows file browser to see what kind of component it is versus, say, a UX, and click Save. Once you've saved that, let's confirm everything looks good by clicking Working Preview, and you'll see we have our grid. In this case, it shows the companies, it shows an invoice or invoices for each of those customers, the status, and the total amount for that invoice. Now that we have our base grid ready to go, let's make a few adjustments. First adjustment I'd like to do is show a few more records per page. I'd also like to make sure my invoice total is properly displayed as a currency and our invoice number is center aligned. So let's go ahead and make a few quick tweaks just to make it look sharp. Let's go into Design, make sure you've selected the fields, and let's start with invoice total here. So click on invoice total, and then on the right hand side in the properties, the third property down here is display format. That dictates what the display format will be when it is showing on the grid. So let's go ahead and click that. That opens up our display format. Notice you can create your own, but we have predefined formats built in. So I'm going to select that and select the third item down and click OK. And you'll notice it inserts the expression for creating the display format. And an important aspect is this is an expression, meaning it's evaluated by the server and it actually is running little functions to format it. So you can have a lot of flexibility in terms of altering the output format, and all it's going to do is take this little value here and then run these expressions around it to convert it into what is displayed to the user. You'll see down below we can see the format here and how it's going to look when it actually goes through this expression. And as you can see right here, you have the formats information that tells you the different types of formats for special types of fields, and also you have international currency formats that are available. Click OK. So we now have our display format that is associated with our invoice underscore total. Now what I'd like to also do is under the invoice number, I want to center align that. So I'm going to go over to invoice number. Now in this case, we're not using display format because that would actually change the display of the number in the field. What we're looking for is down below where we see label properties. You'll notice this is being displayed as a label versus say a text box. And you can see that with the little icon that looks like a T. That means it's a non-editable label on the screen. And then you'll see on the right hand side we have label properties and inline style. So you can see right here we have text-align right. So right now it is right aligned. And we can modify that by clicking on the ellipsis button, scrolling down until we locate the text alignment here, click the drop-down box and select center. And you'll notice you'll see the impact of it right here. And notice I can change any other kind of element. I can pick a different font, a size, a weight, etc. So you can fine-tune the display of your items in your grid by using the style editor here. And you can also save these styles into a library and restore them in case you want to use them over a whole project. Last but not least, you can also associate CSS with this and actually display these styles as CSS, which is very valuable. Let's click OK. So we now have our invoice total properly formatted. We have our invoice number center aligned. Now I'm going to go over and change how many rows are shown because currently 10 is pretty limited. So to do so, I'm going to go over here to Properties, select Properties. I'm going to select Rows of Data, and I'm going to change that to 20. So I'm just going to type 20 in here, and that will change the rows of records. Notice down below we have our records per page selector choices, so I can modify that. I can also change this to say, for instance, invoices per page. Allows a lot of flexibility to tune it up. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to records per page template, and let's change records per page to state invoices per page. That way the user sees what the content is and it makes sense. The other area we can do is go to Total Records Message Text here. That is in the customization area. And you can double click or click the ellipsis button to open that up. Once you've opened that up, you'll notice we have an HTML template. In that template, we're showing static text records, a space, and then a total records in curly brackets. That is considered a formula, meaning it's going to calculate that for us and insert on the fly, depending on the situation, the number of total records. So let's change this from records to invoices. Once you've changed that to invoices, go ahead and click Save, and let's save our changes here. So you click Save, and let's go back into Working Preview and look at our changes. So you'll see things are coming together. Our invoice is showing up here. It also makes more sense down here. We're showing more records, and the display of our items is looking a little nicer. So we've kind of made it easier for the person to read. And you can apply different styles and fonts, etc., to make it even easier for, say, a data entry person who's using this on a daily basis to see the information they're looking for. Now that we have our formatting straight, we can actually now work on grouping. In this case, they are mainly concerned with the status of specific invoices, meaning that they really want to focus, say, on the overdue invoices, because those are the most important here. Now they could go ahead and put in here some searching and sorting. In fact, you could even filter this grid only to show that, but they kind of want to see it in a holistic approach. So let's go back into design. Once you're back into design, go to the properties section on the left-hand side. And this will open up our properties for the overall grid. Now what I'd like you to do is we're going to find the grouping. Now we could search through it here, or we can click up here to search properties and type the word group. Once you have typed the word group in there, you'll see the first item has group breaks, and that's what we're looking for, because we're going to add group breaks based upon the status of the invoices. With has group breaks selected, click Find Property. And you'll notice on the property pane, we're taken down to the has group breaks section. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and that now enables our group breaks. So now we can define specifically how we want to have the group breaks done. So let's go ahead, double click on that, and it opens up our define group breaks. So the first thing it's asking us is the break field. How do you want it to break? On which particular column are you interested in? So you click select, and you select, in our case, status. That's what we're looking for, is status. Although you could do it on any of these, but for this particular case, we want status. Now, it's asking us, do we want to have a group header? And the answer is yes. Let's go ahead and click that. And you'll notice it just brings up a little HTML area. We'll come and explore this a little bit more. But for now, let's just go ahead and change this text right here on line 3 from enter group break header text here to status. So just highlight the text, make sure you highlight it to the right of this little blue caret here, type status, and make sure you don't delete the left or the right caret right here. So again, we have status. We've selected that for the group break, and this is the header for that group break. And then click OK. Now that you've done that, let's go ahead and click Save, and let's look at our grid under Working Preview. So you'll notice now the system has grouped the invoices together. So the first fact is that it's going to go through and it's grouped the invoices together based upon their status. So for instance, all the overdue ones here are located here, and then all of the paid ones are done here. I can scroll down a little bit farther. All the other parts of the grid are the same. It's just inserted this little header at the top of each group for us automatically. And if I go to next, you'll see we also have a status for pending also. So this is a really nice way to immediately put together more of a report format in the grid, but you have all the power of the grid, searching, sorting. We could add links to link it out, to edit that in a UX, put in subgrids, you name it, the sky is the limit. But in our case, we want to focus a little bit more on improving the look and feel of this so that it's more effective. So you'll notice that, and I'm going to go back to my first page here, we've added this group header, and currently it just says status. And to understand what this group is, I have to kind of go down here to look at what the content of the status column is. So we can actually modify that. Let's go ahead and go back into design. Make sure you select properties on the left, and then re-enter the define group breaks. And you'll see we have our group breaks here. Now you'll notice we put in a hard-coded status word right here. And now we can modify that. So we can go invoice status. So I'm just copying over it and typing in invoice status and a colon. Now what I want to do is actually display that particular status for that group. And to do so, I can go over here to Insert Field and click the Insert Field. This will bring up a list of our different fields that are available, and the one I'm looking for is Status. And then click OK. So you'll notice that once I've done that, it's inserted the name of the field in curly brackets. And so therefore, when it renders this group break, it's going to take this HTML, it's going to replace the status for that particular group, and then put it out onto the grid. So let's test that. Click OK, click Save, and let's do working preview. So now you'll notice we have invoice status, overdue, paid, and therefore it's a little bit more understandable. And we can actually make it even a little nicer. It's kind of running together here. So let's change the actual text of the status to be something a little bit more visible. So let's go into Design by clicking the Design tab. Let's re-enter the define group breaks, and we're back here. As I mentioned, this is HTML, so any HTML valid is usable in here. So in front of status, I'm going to put a left caret B, and you'll notice something. Since we're an HTML editor, it actually has autocomplete. So it's showing all the different available styles, or better yet, tags that are available in this situation. You'll notice the first one here is bold text. So that kind of is a little cheat sheet that shows up when we're doing any kind of editing in HTML. And this applies here and then on A5W pages, HTML pages, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and select bold text here. And you'll notice something. It went ahead and put in the closing tag for me. So therefore, it's doing a little bit of the work to make sure I have correct HTML in my HTML output. Now, when I did that, it pushed over status. And we want status to actually be bold. So let's go ahead and highlight that. I'm going to right-click and cut that out. I'm going to go back to between bold and there, and I'm going to paste that. So now it's going to replace this field, but it's also going to add those tags around it to increase the visibility of the current status. Let's go ahead and click OK, and let's click Save. And let's go ahead and do a working preview. So as you can see now, I'm starting to format this so it's a little more visible. You'll see that now overdue and paid are highlighted in bold, and so they pop out a little bit more. And again, you can probably apply even better styling and other things to make that look even sharper. There's a lot of other powerful things we can do with the header, and that is what we're going to be doing next. Now the group header is very powerful. We're just not limited to static fields. We can also put in there summaries. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go into Design. Once you're in Design, make sure Properties is selected. And then let's re-enter in Define Group Breaks. And let's go ahead and go to right after the closing bold tag here for status. And I'd like you to click space and type the word total and space. So again, after the right caret for the closing bold tag, enter a space, type the word total colon and a space. Once you've done that, you'll notice down below we have insert field. This is where we can insert the value of a field itself. But what we're looking for here is insert summary field. And go ahead and select that. Now this will open up a selection box very similar to what we saw before. And what we're looking for here is invoice total. And what we're going to do is do a total of all the current amounts for each invoice. So this is the invoice total per invoice, but we want to group them together. So let's go ahead and click on summary type, and I'd like you to select total. Once you've selected the total there, the next step is to actually give it a display format, very similar to what we did in the grid display, so that when it spits out, it looks sharp. So let's go ahead. You don't, by the way, it's optional. You don't have to do that. But let's go ahead and click Build. This opens up our display format dialog box. select predefined format, and select the third item down, and click OK. And you'll notice it inserts the same style of format expression we had before. And then click OK. So now we've selected invoice total, the summary type is a total amount, and we've given it a specific display format expression. And click OK. Now when you click OK, it's going to insert an expression here. This is the expression it put in there. And it may look a little confusing to begin with, but it's not too bad. And we'll come back and look at that in a moment. But we just want to confirm it's doing what we want it to do. So go ahead and click OK, save our grid, and go into working preview. And now you'll notice we have invoice status, overdue, the word total, and you'll notice now it put in here the total amount. And it calculated that up for the group. So it's the total of all the items in that particular group. So you can see for overdue we have 2,911.22, and for paid total it's 6,437.13. And actually if I scroll down, you'll see for our pending there's about $4,496.01 available. So immediately they not only get the benefit of the grid, but they can see some instant totaling. And as these things are modified, as they say, let's say I edited this record and changed it, when this grid redisplays and refreshes, it's going to update these totals for us. But let's go ahead and add one other just to kind of show you the power of this. So we currently have the status, paid, the total, and now we also are looking for, say, the number of invoices, just so we have a statistical information on that. So let's go to design. Let's go into define group breaks once again. And as we did before, let's scroll to the end of where we're displaying our information. So you notice that that total is all in this expression, this curly brackets here. And as you can see, the center of it is here. Group summary dot invoice total dot total. So kind of a little redundant, but what that's saying is that it's going to generate a group summary over this field, and this is the calculation it's going to perform, in this case a totaling function. And then the rest is just converting it to something that's presentable. So let's go ahead and click right before the right caret right here, click a space, and let's go ahead and insert another field here. So we want to actually insert another summary field. So let's go ahead and say count. So I typed in the word count, C-O-U-N-T colon, and now I'm going to click insert summary field, and what I'm going to do is just select invoice number, and the summary type I'd like is the count. We could also, for instance, do it back over total, get the average amount due, etc. But in this case, I just want to get the count of the number of records for that particular category. So let's click count. So we have invoice number, count, and then display format, it's just an integer, so we don't need to actually apply any kind of display format to it. And let's click OK. So you'll notice in this case, it inserts the curly brackets, which means it's going to dynamically replace what's inside there. And then you'll notice it's doing a group summary over invoice number of type count. And then we click OK and click Save. Let's go ahead and take a working preview. So now you can see we have the status, overdue, the total, and the count of items that are in that character. And we could apply some more formatting, maybe make the amount and the count number bold so it pops out a little bit, maybe even increase the size of these from a font standpoint. But the key thing to understand is that the system will always group things together based on your group header. It will then insert in here summary information based on the value of the items within that group. So it knows what are the items that are associated with that group based upon the group break. And then you can see within here, it will then do the different kind of summary calculations based on your requirements, and you can also apply formatting to it. There are a couple other nice features about grouping I'd like to go ahead and demonstrate. First, you'll notice we have a group header, but we can also add a group footer. So let's go ahead and go back into design and make sure define group breaks is selected. Go ahead and double click on that to open it up. and we'll be back into our group break area. So you'll notice we have a break header here, but we also have what's called a group footer. So let's go ahead and enable that. Let's click Has Group Footer. And you'll notice it's very similar to the header. Basically, it's a set of HTML in a table structure, and this allows us to change this. So I'm going to go ahead and go here and highlight and select the intergroup break footer text here. And I'm going to click and type invoice status. So it's very similar to what we had up top. Or actually, let's do this. Let's go summary, because we're going to do a summary, another type of summary down below. So we have invoice summary and colon. Now I'll go ahead and select here. So the first thing I'd like to put in there is the total. We currently have it up top, so if we'd like to, you can do one of two things. You can either just highlight this, copy it and paste it here because it's exactly the same, or you can follow along with me and I'm going to put in the invoice summary here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the insert summary field here. I'm going to select invoice total. The summary type I'm going to do is total because I'm looking for the total, much like we did in the header. And then I'm going to select the display format. This will open up our dialog box, and I'm going to select our currency format here. And you'll notice it puts our expression. So now we have invoice total. It's a summary of type total, and we have applied the expression. Now when we click OK, you'll notice that it inserts that expression identical to what we had up top. So let's also go over here, and right before that caret, let's go ahead and just put in the average, because we want to determine what the average is for this information. So let's go ahead and put average. Let's go ahead and go insert summary field. So after typing average colon in a space, insert summary field, click invoice total, and now from the summary type, select average versus total. As you can see, there's a ton of other variables, so that we're going to use average here. And I'd like to go ahead and apply a formatting since it's a dollar value. In this case, I'm going to click build, select predefined format, and select the currency. And you'll notice it shows us there. So in our footer, we're going to be showing not only the total, but the average for each one. Once you've done that, you'll see it inserts that new calculation and expression. It's using group summary, invoice total, average, and click OK. Let's save our grid and do our working preview. So now you'll notice, and it's redundant, but on the top we have a header portion, and at the bottom we have now a summary. And this is showing the total, but you'll notice it's showing the average invoice due for the status of overdue is $727. And if I go ahead and scroll down, go to the next page, you'll see that we can quickly determine what's our summary here. So you can use a combination of headers and footers. You can also use much more HTML to make the styling a little easier to read. As you can see, the summary kind of blends into the invoice header here, so I might take some items and move them around. In fact, what you can do, and I'll show you this example here, you'll notice also that invoice summary is on one line. But this is just HTML. So let's go back into design. Once you're in design, let's open define group breaks. And let's focus on the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is you'll notice that it's using an HTML row tag, and we have one row, and each one of these is a column. So if you like, you could create new columns in this, or new rows if you so choose. So this is fully customizable, and it's fairly straightforward and easy to modify there. And if you notice up here, here's some help that talks about the header must be enclosed in a table row, and it must be enclosed in a table cell. So these are some of the instructions on how to handle the information in there. And also, you can get some information about refreshing summary. And in fact, I want to show you that here. You'll notice that in our header and summary, we're actually calculating, or the system is rather calculating for us summary data. So this item right here is being recalculated. Now our grid is read-only, but if our grid was editable, then it's very important about the refreshing the summary values. So I'm going to go and open this here and just kind of walk you through it real quick. Basically, when it's editable, you will find there is a new property that's available in the properties for the grid called row refresh method after edits. And basically, after you do an edit, it tells the grid what portion of the grid it wants to update or should refresh. And normally it's set to a per row basis. But what's very important, you have to make sure that it's set to full page, because it needs to ripple through all the rows, refresh them all, grab all that data, and then update the header and the footer. So again, only applies when you have an editable grid. You just want to adjust that one setting there, and then everything will look great. Now there's one last thing I'd like to do, is show you that we can actually have this sort of more efficient in terms of taking up information on the page. So I'd like you to go ahead and select Show All Groups as Collapsed when initially rendered. So just highlight and select that checkbox. Now put your insertion point before the caret, before invoice status. So we want it actually inside this TD here. So put it right there. Then once you've put your insertion point there, come over here to Insert Special Commands and find the second one, which is Group Toggle Visibility on Click, and click Select. And you'll notice it actually gives us the instructions that it has to be inserted inside of those tags. So now you'll see that it's added a little curly brackets and then the name of that command inside of our TD tag. Click OK. You'll notice we don't have the error message. Click Save and do a working preview. And you'll notice now that all of my grid headers have collapsed, meaning the detail is not shown. And if I click on one, you'll see that when I click on it, it expands to show the details. And if I click on it again, it reduces it to show only the header. You'll also notice that it's showing both the header and the summary. And then here's my second group here. I can click on that and it expands it out there. So this is very nice because it allows you to really preserve screen real estate, but give the user the ability to drill down into the information and see what their information they're looking for. And further for this could have a drill down grid or a UX that you could launch from that. So the ability to essentially collapse and expand the headers is very powerful within this grid and in the grouping feature. As you've seen so far, the grid has an enormous amount of formatting capability to improve how it interacts with the user. But beyond that, there's actually some really powerful formatting that can be done within a grid from a color standpoint to give more actionable intelligence to people. And that's going to be our next training segment. In this case, we're going to go ahead and leave our invoice grid, and we're going to go ahead and go back to our customer grid, our original customer grid, and add some capabilities to improve the visibility for the user who is managing customer information. So to do so, return to the Web Projects Control Panel, either by clicking down at the lower tab or up here, and locate the customer grid. This grid was created in the very first training session, and we're going to go ahead and modify that. So let's go ahead and open that up by double-clicking on it, and click Working Preview to view it. As you can see, this grid is basically a list of all the customers. It has a number of search and sort capabilities, and it also has a built-in detail view to be able to edit the customer. I want to make one quick adjustment before we start modifying this grid to add more data. And that is currently the detail view is shown on the page, and I'd rather have that be a pop-up. So to do so, click on Design to return to Design. Then you'll notice over here there's a detail view area. Let's click on Properties for detail view. And then what I'd like you to do is go down till we see the display options. In our case, it's currently set to split view _right. That means it's displaying the actual detail view to the right of the content. To modify that, click the down arrow here, and let's select pop-up window modal. That will then turn this into a pop-up so we can have more grid space on our screen. Now, in order to make this work, you need to also select, if you've selected pop-up window modal, only show detail view on request. So select that. And I like to also select close detail view after submit, and select that. With those two modifications, click Save. Let's go into our working preview, and you'll see now the detail view is no longer shown on the page. But if you click on a name here, you'll see that it's still available. It just opens up in a pop-up box instead of being there. So now we're ready to add our new content. Let's go ahead and close the detail view. And what we're going to do is, in the updated databases, there are some new fields that have been added that are tracking customer performance, and we'd like to show that on this customer grid and do some highlighting. So let's go back into design. Let's go to fields, and let's look at our fields. So as you can see in our grid, we're only showing a subset of the items because actually these are done through the detail view. And if you'll notice, this is the current sort of fields that this grid is aware of in the database. Now, since this training was done, the database has been updated. So you'll notice we don't see the new fields here. So to see those fields, click Query, click Connect to reconnect to the database, and click this little Recycle button right here. What this does is it refreshes the field list. It calls the database and finds out what's in the database. So once you've selected that and clicked on it, if you go to Fields, you will now see we have some new items that are available. These are new fields that were added to the database since this first grid was built. So what I'm going to do is click Customer ID right here. I'm then going to click and highlight Sales Month to Date through Reorder KPI. And I'm going to click this button here to go over and add those into my grid. So now these fields will display in the grid. And to show that, let's click Save, go into Working Preview. You'll notice now that our new fields are displayed on the screen, and we can start taking our next steps to enhance the visuals of those fields in our customer list. Before we add our new colors, I'd first like to clean this up to make this look a little nicer. Specifically, these are currency numbers, so I'd like to display both sales month to date and sales year to date in currency. And also I'd like to center align these three items here for the different KPIs. So let's go ahead and go into Design. Let's first select sales month to date, and on the right hand side, let us go to the display format. This will be the format that will be applied when the grid is rendered. To change that, select our little ellipsis button there, or double click on it. This will open up our display format. Let's select a predefined one. So click Select Predefined Format and select the third item down, which is the currency one, and click OK. And you'll notice it inserts our expression. And now we click OK. So now we've formatted our sales month to date. Now, we could go through that same process with sales year to date, but to simplify it, we can do the following. Click on Display Format, make sure that field is selected, then click on this little icon right here to copy that parameter. You'll notice it opens up a selector showing my other items in the grid. And I'm going to click Sales Year to Date and click Set Properties. That now has copied this property from Sales Month to Date to Sales Year to Date, so now they have the same display format. So as you can see, this is a very powerful little feature because it speeds up formatting. Now for overall KPI, what I want to do is change the style so it's not right aligned, but rather center aligned. So select Overall KPI, and then come down to the Label Properties and click Inline Style. Currently it's text align right. Go ahead and select that. And you'll see it gives us our style editor. Scroll down a little bit till we get to the alignment. And when you have found the alignment, go ahead and click and select center. And once you've done that, you'll see it update here. Once you're satisfied and you make sure this alignment is center, click OK. And you'll see the system writes that label style right here. We want the same for our purchasing and reorder KPI, so we can apply the same technique. Let's go ahead with inline style, make sure that's selected, click this, and you'll notice it brings up our select controls. And the controls I'm looking for are purchasing KPI, reorder KPI, so I'm going to highlight both of those. You'll notice it's showing me their current style, and then click Set Properties. So if you go down here, you'll see it's now copied that property. So let's click Save, and let's review it just to make sure everything looks good. So go into Working Preview, and you'll notice now our sales are nicely formatted and our KPIs are also nicely formatted in this situation. So what we want to do is highlight the customers that we see the performance is good and also the performance is not so good. So what we want to do is focus first on this sales year to date. So what we want to do is highlight any customers that have sales year to date over 500,000. We want to highlight them. So let's do that. Let's go into Design, and then what I'd like you to do is select Properties. And this will open up our properties for the overall grid. Now what I'd like you to do is click on Search Properties and type the word conditional. And as you see, as we get close to typing that whole word, you'll see there's conditional styles. And the one I'd like is the first one, server side. So let's go ahead and click Find Property. When you click Find Property, it actually takes you down to the conditional style server side, which is what we're looking for. And you'll notice it's asking us to click the button to edit. So let's go ahead and click that. And that opens up our conditional style builder. And what we're going to do is add our initial style in here. So for customers over 500,000, we want them to be highlighted, say, in green for a positive response. So click Add Condition. This will open up our condition style. So the top part is our logical expression, meaning basically what is the test we're going to do. So what we can do is we can insert one of the field names, in this case, sales year to date. That inserts the field there. And then I'm going to say greater than 500,000. So this is just a little numeric expression. So it's going to look at each row, look at the sales year to date, and look if it's over 500,000. And if it is, it will then apply the style that's located down here. Now you have two options. You can select a class, which is nice, and you can have pre-made classes, or you can just put in basic styles. So we'll use that for right now. So the first thing we want to do is highlight the row in green. So you'll notice there's a fill box here. I'm going to click that, and I have mine are recent here, but you can go to System here and scroll down till you locate dark green and select that. So you'll see the row is now going to be highlighted with a green color, but you'll notice also the text is not very readable. So let's go ahead and modify the color of the text. So let's change the color of the text from black to white. And again, I'm going to go back to System here and search for my white color. Here it is. And it will remember over time the most recent colors you selected, so that makes life a little simpler. So now you should see sales year to date greater than 500,000. Click OK, and you'll notice we have our first condition in our conditional row style. Go ahead and click OK, save this, and let's return to our working preview. So you'll see now the rows that have a sales year to date over 500,000 are now highlighted in green. We've identified our top selling customers, but we also want to identify other customers at different levels. So we can extend this conditional formatting style concept to help do that. So let's return to design. Let's open conditional style server side, and you'll see we have our original condition. But one of the powerful aspects of this system is the ability to have multiple conditions. So let's add a new condition. Let's click Add Condition. We can insert the field name, in our case, sales year to date, and let's put in greater than 200,000. But now let's take it and say dot and sales year to date is less than 500,000. So I'm creating a more extensive expression here, and that expression includes if things are greater than 200 but less than 500. Now you'll notice the and here, and you'll see it has a dot and dot. That is because this is an XBasic expression, so it uses XBasic to evaluate this on the server. And in fact, if you click this little help button right here, it explains that and shows that here. So this gives you a kind of a help on how to write your expressions here. By the way, you're not limited to just simple. You can see there's whole functions you can put in here. So I could actually insert a whole function that could do other things. So for instance, I can see all the kind of functions that are available in the system, such as text manipulation, numeric value manipulation, you name it. So we've set up our logical expression now. Now I want to actually say if a row matches this, this is what I'd like it to look like. So let's use the same method. I'm going to select the background here and find our yellow. Go ahead and here you go. Let's say yellow. And in this case, the black text looks good on the yellow, so I'll leave it. So again, sales year to date greater than 200,000. Make sure you have the dot and dot here, and then sales year to date less than 500,000. And your color is yellow. Click OK. So now you see you have the two conditions, the first one and the second one. And let's go ahead and add a third condition because we really want to highlight those low customers that aren't really doing a lot of business. So let's click Add Condition. Let's insert our field name, sales year to date. And this one we're just going to make it less than 200,000. So it's a very simple expression. And in that case, let's go ahead and set our background to be red. So we'll just go ahead and I'm going to use dark red. That's a nice one here. And in this case, the kind of text here, I'm going to make it white so it really shows up nice and bright. So again, sales year to date less than 200,000, and then red for a background and white for the text itself. So now we have these three conditions that are available, and we click OK, click Save, and we can go into working preview. And you'll notice now it's a little busy, but now you're really starting to highlight, so you can immediately see who are the people who are lagging behind, and you can also see people who are on the border. And so you'll see we now have a much more effective way to present information to the user and allow them to see what is important, what's not in the situation of, in this case, managing customers. Now remember, I used a color scheme, but you're not just limited to colors. Any kind of HTML styling is available in this. So for instance, you could highlight, you could bold some items, you could strike through some items, you could apply any CSS styles you so choose. And if I go back into design and into the conditional side, you'll see that basically when I edit, you have all the basic and you have advanced style and also the CSS classes. So just keep that in mind. There's a lot of flexibility in terms of how you want to represent the information to the user in that scenario here. While the row level formatting is very effective, it does have certain limitations. In this particular situation, we're really only highlighting the row based upon the value of a single column or a single criteria. But let's say we want to highlight more information in terms of how the person is doing or how the customer is doing, i.e. we want to be able to highlight both the sales month to date and sales year to date versus just one column. Well, in that case, we can move the conditional formatting from the row level to the actual column or field level. And we're going to do that now. So let's go back into design. And for now, let's go into conditional style. And we're going to go ahead and delete these conditions here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these because I don't want to have that style applied at that level here. And then click OK. So now our grid is back to where it was before, and you'll see there's no formatting happening on the grid. Let's return to design. And what I'd like to do is actually return back here from the properties to the field level. So we're going back to fields here. And then what I'd like you to do is click on sales year to date and highlight sales year to date field. Now you'll notice on the right hand side we have a field level conditional style. It's the fourth item down. And so we can repeat what we did at the row level at the field level. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and click conditional style. And you'll notice now we have our conditional style builder. And again, this will only apply to this one field. So let's go ahead and add our conditions. Click add condition. And remember our first condition, and we're looking at our own field. That's kind of an interesting aspect of this, is you can actually look at yourself as far as the conditional formatting. Or you can look at other fields. There's many ways to handle this. So let's go to insert field name and put sales year to date greater than 500,000. So that's our first criteria. And we wanted the background color to be dark green. And you should now start seeing the colors you used before show up in recent, which will save you time. And we want our text color, which is this little A, to be white. And so we have our first conditional style. So click OK. And now instead of getting out, we can go ahead and add those other conditions. Let's add the second condition here. I'm going to insert this field name, which is sales year to date. And I'm going to say greater than 200,000 dot and don't forget the dots, sales year to date less than 500,000. Okay, so sales year to date greater than 200,000 and sales year to date less than. And our background color we would like, by clicking the little paint bucket, is yellow. And we leave the text black. Click OK. So we have our next one. Now we have our third condition. So let's go ahead and click add condition one more time. And we're going to go ahead and insert the field name sales year to date is less than 200,000. And we have to select our fill-in color of dark red. So that's the paint bucket is dark red. And remember, we want to change the text here to white. So it's nice and available here. So we have our third expression. So let's click OK. So now we have our three expressions, and those are only defined on sales year to date. So let's click OK. Let's click Save and click Working Preview. So now you'll see instead of the whole row being highlighted, we're now starting to see just this one individual field being highlighted. So in this case, it gives us a much tighter, less busy interface. So in that case, it's pretty nice. But what's going to be valuable is we can apply different formatting to different fields. And that's what we're going to do in the next segment. Now our team members can see what's going on with the sales year to date, but we want to have them have a similar indicator for sales month to date. So we now want to take essentially the same methodology and apply it to sales month to date. As you can see, sales month to date has a different numeric value, so we'll have to adjust it accordingly. So let's go ahead and go back into design. And now we can go to sales month to date, and you'll notice it has a conditional style. Now we could apply the method we did before, which is we walk through and modify it by adding new styles. But as you can see, that could be somewhat tedious. So let's use a shortcut. Let's go back to sales year to date. Let's go ahead and open the conditional style. And you'll notice here's our conditional style for sales year to date. So what I'd like you to do is look down in the left corner and you'll see there's a little link button called Export, and click Export. And you'll see that Alpha opens up a dialog box, and in here it essentially has a textual representation of these expressions. So now we can click and highlight all of this, and I'm going to right click and do copy and click OK. So basically I've copied all these conditions onto my clipboard. And I'm going to click cancel here because we don't want to modify this. So now we can go to sales month to date. We can open conditional styles. And instead of having to add the conditions, we can click import and right click in this white space here and click paste. And then click OK. So it basically saves us a shortcut where we go in and don't have to do all the steps. But we do still have an issue. We want this to be highlighted based on the sales month to date, and it's still pointing at the sales year to date field and the values for sales year to date. So essentially the colors would be the same for both of these. So now we just need to do a quick adjustment. So I'm going to go into sales year to date and double click on there. I'm going to highlight sales year to date. I'm going to highlight that and click insert field name and select sales month to date. So I'm basically just swapping out sales year to date with sales month to date. And in this case, what I'd like to do is highlight this to be 50,000. So I'll go to the end and remove a 0. So now if sales month to date is greater than 50,000, we'll get a green indicator. And click OK. So you'll see now our first condition is now based on sales month to date and has our new number. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for these other two. So I'm going to double click on there. Now, we don't necessarily have to insert the field name. We can just edit the expression directly. So I'm just going to highlight the Y here and highlight the Y here. And I'm putting M for month to date. And I'm just going to remove the 0 after each one of these. So you can see we have now sales month to date greater than 20,000. Sales month to date less than 50,000 gives us a yellow. So click OK. And we have one last one here. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to change that to month to date, and I'm going to remove a 0 here. So our last one is sales month to date less than 20,000. Click OK, and now we have our updated conditions. As you can see, instead of having to create them all from scratch, we saved a little time because we just had to edit the expressions. And in fact, just to let you see this, if I click import here and paste it, I could have made those modifications right here in this before doing that. So I can even make it a little bit quicker because I can kind of do these modifications here or paste it into a text editor, modify it, and bring it back from here. But our case, we did it manually after we imported that. So let's click OK. Let's now click Save. And let's go to our working preview. And you'll notice now we have sales year to date, but now our sales month to date. So we can see, for instance, oh, this person doing good for the year, but the month they're a little light. They're doing okay. These people are doing great. These are not doing so well. So it really provides a very powerful way for the person to be able to see what is going on with the data in a very quick format instead of having to do the analysis without the colors. Up to this point, we've been using server-side conditional formatting. Thus, the server is doing the actual calculation and updating it before it comes back down to the browser and is displayed to the user. And that's simple, easy, and effective. But sometimes you need to be able to see this impact or effect when it's actually running on the client and you want it to be immediate. If I were to change numbers, I'd have to refresh this grid, and when I refresh the grid, then the numbers would update. But sometimes I want a more immediate situation. And that's what's called client-side conditional formatting. And we're going to go ahead and show you how that's done here. So in order to do so, we're going to return to another grid we had previously built that allowed us to edit line items in an invoice. So click Web Projects Control Panel and locate Customer Invoice Items Edit _ grid. This is an editable grid. So let me go ahead and open that up. Okay, once you've opened it up, you'll see that we have a fairly simple grid. It basically consists of a product ID, price, quantity, extension. And this is a editable grid, meaning the person can interact with it and actually edit the data right inside the interface. And let me go ahead and show you that. Go into Working Preview. And you'll see I have my editable grid. It's displaying my price, quantity, extension. And for instance, if I change the quantity here to 8, you'll notice that the calculation is built in, so it'll recalculate the extension. But let's say we wanted to do some formatting, so when people are entering line items, it's giving them directions. And although this is a contrived example, for instance, maybe they want to encourage people to have more quantity ordered on an item basis. So let's say for this case, if you have less than 2 items, it's colored red, and if it's over 2 items, it's colored, say, green. So we'll go ahead and show you how to put that together. So let's go ahead and go back into design. And what I'd like you to do is click on quantity. That is the item we want to draw attention to. Once you've gone to quantity, you'll see we have a conditional style. This is what we've used before. And this is the server side conditional style. But what we're going to want to use is called client side. So let's scroll down a little bit here till we get to the client side properties. And you'll notice there is a conditional style that's below that. And this is considered client side, meaning it will actually operate on the web browser or mobile device immediately. The primary benefit of this is that you'll see the impact of your changes immediately versus having to wait for the server to do an update and return the information to the user. Let's go ahead and double click on conditional style or click the ellipsis button to open that up. And you'll see we have essentially almost identical in terms of how we build the conditional style. So I'm going to move it up here. I'm going to click add condition. Like we did before, I'm going to insert a field name, and you'll notice it is giving me, in this case, my fields in the grid plus some other ones here. And I'm going to select quantity. And I'm going to go, if it's greater than 2, what we want to do is highlight, much like we did with the other solution. So I'm going to make the background here dark green. So I'm selecting a background that says if they've ordered over 2 items, then they're going to get a dark green. And I'm going to change the font color to be white so it's nice and visible. So very similar process. You basically put in your expression up top here, and then you have your applied style below. So let's go ahead and click OK. And here is our first one. Now what I'd like to do is add a second condition. In this condition, if the quantity is less than 2, then they get a yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and go and add condition. I'm going to insert our field name, in this case quantity, and I'm going to say less than 2. So if it's greater than 2, they get that. If they're less than. Now, very important, this is client side. Let's show this little question mark right here. So in this case, this is a client side expression. So there is a primary difference, and I want to let you know about this. You can't use the .and, .or, .not. So previously we were using that because it was XBasic. And the reason for that is because it's JavaScript that's actually doing the expression. So it would not understand these commands, although the server would, the actual browser wouldn't, because everything is done in JavaScript. So I just wanted to show that out. And if you have any questions, you can click this little question mark and it will show you the help there. I want to make one small adjustment. We currently have quantity greater than 2 is going to be green. And we now have this expression of less than 2. We're going to make it yellow. But what I want to do is use less than or equal to. Because otherwise, if it's 2, we wouldn't see any kind of styling. So now that I've done quantity is less than or equal to 2, I'm going to make my background to be yellow. So I've selected that, and it's in my recents here since we just used that. And I'm going to go ahead and leave the text color to be black. So I click OK. Now we have a situation where if it's greater than 2, it's red. And if it's less than or equal to, or I'm sorry, green, if it's less than or equal to 2, then we're going to have it yellow. Let's click OK. Let's click Save. And let's go into our working preview. Now you'll notice a couple things. First is we're not seeing the background, and I'll come back to that in a few moments, but we are seeing where it's already starting to do the conditional formatting based upon the value in quantity. So you'll see all the items that are greater than 2 are green, anything that's 2 or less is yellow. Now, one of the cool things about client side is watch this. So I'm going to change this value from 1 to 3. And you'll notice the moment I change the value, this conditional format had changed. So I didn't have to go back to the server to make that happen. It happened instantaneously. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to put a 1, and you'll notice it went back to yellow. So that's very powerful because as the person is entering and manipulating data, they can see the impact immediately. So it's much stronger than having to click and wait. And you can kind of use it in different scenarios to kind of give them warnings or tell them statuses. In this case, hey, good job, you're going up to a higher quantity level. Very, very powerful. So one thing we want to address, though, is that you'll notice that currently it's a green box or yellow box around the control. And that's the reason is this is not a label, this is actually a control. So let's go back to design, quantity, and you'll notice right below conditional style, we have a conditional style level. And there are some options. There's cell, there's the control, or both. So the cell is actually sort of a table row, kind of a table cell that the control actually is inside. In our case, we actually want to have it be the control itself that's in there. So we can select control. And another alternative is both, but we're going to use control here. So that's very important because that then dictates how you'll see the formatting. So I'm going to go back into working preview. And you'll notice now instead of a sort of a outline, we now have a full-blown color coding and background for it. And you'll notice it works great. If you go out, it immediately puts in the styling, and you'll see I can just go back and forth, and it's immediate in terms of what happens there. So that's called client-side conditional formatting. One last thing I wanted to address was the fact that I'm going to go into client conditional style. So as you notice, everything was pretty much the same except for one key difference, which is you don't use the XBasic commands for like and, or, etc. But I also wanted to talk about one other very powerful capability. You'll notice that we have field name. You can put functions, but you can also use JavaScript functions. That's more advanced. But basically, this allows you to, instead of writing your expression here, you can actually create a JavaScript function that will actually do the evaluation for you. And therefore, it can be very flexible and very powerful. And you'll find that you can do a lot of things that you couldn't even think of doing here using that JavaScript expression. And so that's very, very powerful. In fact, they give you a function prototype right here. So let's go ahead and give this name of my evaluation. And you'll see that this is the little function that you actually will modify. So this is just a template that you can use. And what's great is you not only can do the evaluation, you can actually have it come back and modify the style in JavaScript. So you don't even have to put that styling here. Although I highly suggest setting up CSS styles and then dynamically applying them as you see fit. So very powerful, the ability to use both JavaScript functions to do evaluation and JavaScript functions to do the style selection, along with the standard way we've shown so far. In our previous training, we showed how you could include buttons and images that act as buttons in grids. In fact, let me go ahead and show you our customer invoice header grid here. Let me open that up, and I will do a working preview. Now you'll notice that we have a button here, and we also have an image that acts like a button. And these are acting on an individual row basis. In the case of the view, when I click that, it actually opens up a UX to edit that particular row. And by the way, notice that now our client-side formatting is automatically showing up in our grid that we've embedded here. One of the nice features of Alpha is you can break your solution into multiple subcomponents and then work on them individually and bring it together into a whole. But you may have a situation where instead of acting on an individual row, you actually want to add behaviors to the overall grid. And that is where action buttons come into handy. And what we're going to do is focus and show a quick example of how. So now we're going to dive into how you can add these action buttons to your grid to allow you to do grid level activities, much like we've used buttons at the row level to do row level activities. We'll go ahead and add those to another grid instead of this one, which will make it easier for us to demonstrate it. So if you've opened this, go ahead and close this grid and go ahead and open up the customer grid. The customer grid is our primary grid we've been working on, and let's go ahead and do a working preview. And you'll see that's where we had it before when we were doing the server-side conditional formatting. So I want to be able to add a button to this, and I'm going to make a very simple button to start out with, but then we're going to add more and more detailed and more powerful buttons to our solution. So let's go ahead and dive in. Click Design. Now buttons here are going to be at the grid level, so click Properties. This will take you to the Properties screen, and click Search Properties and type the word Action. And you'll notice the second item down here is called Action Buttons. So click Find Property. That will move our cursor and our selection down to the Action Button location. And once you're there, you can either double click on here or click this to open up our Action Button editor. And this is where we can add one or more buttons to our grid. So let's go ahead and add the first one. Click Add Action Button. This opens up our Add New Action button, and I'm just going to put on here Message. That's the name of the action. Now you'll notice we can have this button display as a button, a hyperlink, or an image. It's up to you, and it depends on your particular environment what you would like to do. Since we've selected button, you'll see that the button hypertext length is called button. So I'm going to just say Message. Now these don't have to be the same name, I'm using that, but this may be something more descriptive for the person to see what the button says. So now that we've started to add our new button, let's click OK. So as you can see now, I have my button over on the left. I can add more buttons or delete them. For the selected button, you'll see over here, this is the properties for that button. So you'll see our name, the type. You could change that back to a hyperlink or image, whatever you want to do. And the key here is under the button action. You'll see you also have a lot of things in terms of the button appearance and server-side properties, things like security groups. If you have security enabled, you can show and hide buttons. So a lot of really fun stuff you can do there. But what we want to do now is we've defined our button, but it doesn't do anything. So we want to add some action JavaScript to perform a task. So to do so, we go button action to the JavaScript level, and we click that. That will open up our action JavaScript builder. Now, we could immediately go into text mode and write some text here, like some JavaScript, and have it command. That's perfectly okay. But I really like to use action JavaScript as much as possible. So let's go back to action JavaScript and click Add New Action. Once this is opened up, you'll see our first item here is Message Box. So I'm going to go ahead and select Message Box and click OK. And this opens up our Action JavaScript Message Box Action Builder. So here's our message. So I'm just going to change that from sample message, and notice I'm doing it inside of the single quotes. And I'm going to change that to Hello Class. Now I'm going to leave the button as OK, but as you can see, you can have an OK cancel, which is very handy because you may have a situation where you want to give the user an option to continue the process or stop it. And so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now this will close my action builder, and I'm just going to go Show Message. This is my comment here. And the main reason I do comments is I might have more than one action JavaScript, so I want to kind of describe what's going to happen there. So now we've defined our action JavaScript, and I'm going to click Save. So we have our button, we have our JavaScript, and we've defined it as an action JavaScript. And click OK. Now we've added our button, but in fact I'll show you, if I go back into working preview, you'll see that our button doesn't appear anywhere. And this was similar to when we were working with grids. You would link a grid, but then you had to actually tell it where to display that linked grid on the user interface. And we must do the same thing here. And we use the same technique. So we need to go to Design, and what I'd like you to do is either scroll down a little bit until you get to the Freeform Edit regions, or you can click Search Properties and type Freeform, and you'll see it will take you to the Freeform area. Then what I'd like you to do is you'll notice there are 4 options: above, below, left, or right of the grid. So you can determine where you want to place this button. In my case, I want to put the button above the grid. So I'm going to double click this, or click this to open. And you'll notice now I have an HTML editor, and I can just put any HTML I want there, but you'll notice now that I've defined my new button, it actually has a placeholder that's available. So I'm going to double click that, putting that placeholder in here. So therefore, above the grid, it's going to render whatever's in here, and in this case, it's going to render my button that I've described earlier. Click OK. Click Save, and let's go ahead and go into Working Preview. So now you'll notice we have a button up here called Message. And if I click on that button, it shows our message here. So this allows you to add buttons to the grid to be able to perform actions on the overall grid. And we're going to explore that more. But as you can see, you're not limited to a single button. You can put as many as you want, and you can put them either on the left part, below the grid, to the right, wherever you would like to within the system. While this example shows the basic concept, it doesn't really do anything very interesting at this point. So let's go ahead and add a more powerful button into this. Now, you'll notice we're reviewing customers. So maybe we want to have the ability to print a custom report so that the user can print out, say, a directory. Let's return to Design. Scroll back up until we get to the Action Buttons area and double click on Action Buttons to open that up. We're back at our Action Button Editor, and we're going to add a new action. So let's click Add Action Button, and let's call it Directory. That's the action name. And we'll continue using a button, and we'll put on here Customer Directory. So this is the action name, which is shorter, and then I can put any kind of text, including any kind of HTML in here. So let's go ahead and click OK. So as before, we've created our new action button, but it doesn't do anything. So now let's go to our JavaScript here, and let's open that up to assign an action to this action button. And this will take us back into our action JavaScript. So click Add New Action. And what I'd like you to type is the word report. And you'll notice when it's filtered it, our first one here is Open a Report Label or Letter Layout. Let's go ahead and click OK. Now this gives us an option of deciding which report we'd like to. Let's go ahead and select that. This opens up the Report Print Genie, and click Select again. And you'll notice the first one here is called Customer Directory. So we can click OK. We'll be returning to talk about the grid filter, but we're going to leave this unfiltered for right now. So once you've selected Customer Directory from the layout name, click OK. Now you'll notice my initial view is set to PDF. That's the default. I'd like you to go ahead and change that to HTML. That'll allow this to open up much quicker. And then I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit. You'll notice you have some options in terms of do you want to allow the user to print as PDF, Excel, Word, etc. And you also have the option down here to put the target for where you'd like it to be open. I'm going to leave this to window, but a very powerful way is, for instance, a tabbed UI pane. So if you're using a tabbed UI, you can have multiple things open at one time. You could actually even have this report downloaded automatically. And you can also use XBasic, which is very powerful, which actually executes a function. So for instance, you could take this report and then mail it to someone or store it in another location or something along those lines. Very, very powerful. But for our purposes, I'm going to keep it window. And I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to go Print Customer Directory. And that's the comment for my action JavaScript. Because as you can see, it's just says open a report. In our case, we want to let it know which one we're going to be doing. Once you've saved that and added the comment, click Save. And now we have our new button and our new action JavaScript to execute that. So let's go ahead and click OK. So now that we've added our action button, we now actually need to put it on our user interface. So as we did before, let's scroll down till we get to the Freeform Edit regions. It's about halfway down. And let's go ahead and reopen that by double-clicking on it or click the ellipsis. And you'll see we have our original button right here, and now we have our new button. So I'm going to go ahead and insert that first. and I'll go ahead and put a space. So I double clicked on this so it inserted that text here, put a space, and we now have our second button that's right here, and it's actually in front of the first button. Now I noticed earlier that it kind of ran in with the number of records, so I'm going to put in some HTML here, and I'm just going to type open character or open caret BR. That's a forced line break in HTML. That way it puts a little space after these buttons. So make sure yours says action button directory, action button message, and click OK. Now we've added our button, we've added it to the user interface, and we're ready to test. Click Save to save your grid. Let's click Working Preview. And you'll notice now we have our two buttons, Customer Directory and Message. And you'll also notice that now I put that little line break in here, I put this customers down here instead of to the side of it. And by the way, you can put any other HTML you would like. You could surround this with a nice little line like a table line or things like that. So I'm going to click Customer Directory, and you'll see that it opens up in a window my customer directory. And so again, I'm able to reuse that content and tie it together. And as we mentioned earlier, it allows the person to export as a PDF, Excel, Word, etc. So you can see this is the full report here. And if I close it, it takes us back to the grid. So you can have very, very powerful capabilities because of Action JavaScript. These buttons can do a lot of things. And actually, since it's Action JavaScript, you can actually chain multiple events together. So it really brings a lot of flexibility to your grid and allows the user now to operate on that grid using these kind of buttons. We're going to continue adding some more buttons and showing you some powerful techniques. But before we do, I want to cover an important pattern that I think would really pay dividends for you to follow. Let me go ahead and show you. If I go back into Design and I go into my button, I'm going to go scroll back up and go into my Action button. Let's take Message for example. When we created the Message button, we went into the JavaScript here, and we went ahead and created our Action JavaScript at this point in time. And that's okay, but there's a better way to manage Action JavaScript. Over time, you will accumulate a number of them, and you'll want to make it easier to maintain and update. So let me show you the best technique for that. So I'm going to click Cancel and Cancel. Follow along with me. Make sure you are on the Design tab. Then what I'd like you to do is click here at JavaScript Actions. This opens up our Define JavaScript Actions dialog box. And this is where we can centrally create and manage JavaScript actions. And that's important for maintainability. So let's go ahead and add a new action here. And I'm going to call this Show Message. So again, show underscore message, and click OK. Now you'll notice that I've created a new action JavaScript, or actually a new JavaScript action, but it's currently red. And that means that it has not been defined, meaning it's there, but it's empty. So let's go ahead and edit that action. So click Edit Action. This is going to ask us which part of the grid we want to take action on. In our case, we're at the grid part. If we were adding action buttons to the detail view, we would use the detail view part. But we're on the grid part because we're going to replace those top level buttons. So let's go ahead and click OK. And this opens up our event manager. And you can see we're back to our action JavaScript. Very similar to what we had when we edited the action directly within the button. And we can go in and put in our code in JavaScript, or in our case, we can add our action JavaScript here. So I'll go ahead and add new action. And I'm going to select Message Box, click OK. Once you've clicked OK, I'm just going to put in here, in the single quotes inside those, I'm just going to go, hello class, and I'll leave the rest the same. So again, the message box text is single quote, hello class, close quote, single quote, and buttons OK, and the variable name is message result. Let's go ahead and click OK. And we'll go ahead and put in a comment. And click OK. So now we have defined our message for this. So I'm going to click Save. So now we have a action JavaScript that is at the essentially the grid level here. And it's not actually associated with anything yet. So let's go ahead and click OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my action buttons. So I finished with my JavaScript actions. I'm going to go back into my action buttons. I'm going to find my message button. So click on the message button. And then we'll go over here to JavaScript and edit that. You'll notice we have a message box action, but I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So I'm going to delete that action. Once I've deleted that, I'm going to add a new action here. And I'm going to locate the 5th item down, which is called Run Action. And then once I've selected Run Action, I'm going to click OK. So now this gives me a dialog box where I can say which action. I'm going to click the down, and you'll notice we have our show message that we just created at the JavaScript actions top level. And there's nothing, it kind of stands on its own, so we're not passing in any information to it. And then click OK. And I'm going to say run the show message action. Dynamite. So now we have, instead of defining that action here, we're just mainly triggering it from this location. I click save. Now, obviously, in this kind of simple situation, you may make sense just to define it right on the button. But by putting all of your actions on JavaScript actions, you will find that it's easier to maintain. Instead of having to find the action buttons, open it up, find the button, open up the JavaScript, etc., you can literally just go right into JavaScript actions and edit the action there. And that will produce a much simpler way. You'll kind of know where everything's at. And you won't have JavaScript and Action JavaScript buried throughout your grid. So I'm going to click OK. And let's just do a working preview to show that it is working correctly. So when I click message, it opens up our message here. And what's important is that it's not actually running that message here. It's really just calling the action that's embedded with the overall grid to give us that effect. I'm not going to do customer directory, but we will be using this pattern as we set up the next few items. But you'll find if you follow this, you're going to find that your life is going to be much simpler and maintenance is going to be much easier for you and your team going forward. Currently, when you click the customer directory, it will open up a report and show all the records in the grid. But there's a powerful capability that allows you to print only the filtered items. So for instance, and I click here in search customers and type BA and do a search, you'll see that the system has limited it to a few items. The current search here will run against all fields. You'll see that it's picking out BA here, 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 and here. Now what I'd like to be able to do is do a customer directory, but only the items I have searched for. And there's a way to do that. Let's go back into design, and we're going to create a new action button. And I'm going to go ahead and define that button first. So currently we have two action buttons, message and directory. And we want to add a new action button, and I'm going to call that filtered directory. Now that's the action name, and I'm going to go ahead and put the same in the button text. So we'll see this is the name of the action, and this is the actual text that they'll see on the button. So we could go into Action JavaScript here and modify that, but I want to go ahead and use our new design pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and I'm going to go over here to JavaScript Actions. Going to click on JavaScript Actions, and that will open up our defined JavaScript actions. And let's add our new action. So I'm going to do this one, which is filter directory, and click OK. So we have our new action, but it's not been fleshed out. So let's go ahead and edit that action. Again, it's going to ask us which part are we taking action on. In this case, it's going to be in the grid part. Let's go ahead and click OK. And it opens up our Action JavaScript Builder. And we can follow the same steps as before. We can click Add New Action. That'll bring in our Action JavaScript editor. I'm going to type the word report, and what we're doing is opening a report. And click OK. Now this is asking us which report we would like to run, and the one we would like to run is our customer directory. So once you've opened the report Print Genie, click Select and select Customer Directory and click OK. Now, you'll notice that we have had the ability to pass in a filter. So we could create our own filter. In fact, you can click Build here and say, for instance, last name equals Smith. And then it would run that filter. So you can hard code the filter if you'd like. But let me go ahead and click Cancel here. And you'll notice below here we have a little command called Current Grid Filter. And let's go ahead and click that. And you'll notice when we click that, it puts in Current Grid Filter, open close parentheses. And this is a function that will look at the current filtered grid and pass that SQL query into this report. It's very convenient because you don't have to worry about figuring out how to manage that information. So once you have current grid filter in here, click OK. The initial view we would like is HTML. That'll make it open faster. And I'm going to accept the rest of the default. And we're going to go ahead and open the target tool window as we have been doing so far. So now click OK. I'll say Open Filtered Directory Report. That way we have a very clean comment to know what this will do. And we'll go ahead and click Save. So now you'll notice our JavaScript action is Filter Directory. And it is green, which means that it's enabled and ready to go. So now I can click OK. Once I've defined my action in JavaScript, or JavaScript actions, I can go back into my action button, select our button, and click on JavaScript. And then go ahead and click on that. This will open up our action JavaScript builder. I'm going to click Add New Action. And what I'd like you to do is select Run Action and click OK. Now I'll go and I'll select from our action name the filter directory, and now we've associated that command to be run when this is there. We'll go Run Action Filter Directory. Now we click Save, and now we have linked our button action to the JavaScript action and click OK. So now let's click Save. But we have one last task we need to do. We've added our button, we've added our action, but currently it's not going to show on the user interface until we scroll down to the Above Grid. And let's go ahead and double click on Above Grid. And this is where we placed our other button. So we can place our third new button in the same general location. So I'm going to select here before the curly bracket action button message. And I'm going to double click on Filter Directory. And then I'm going to put a space. So now I've inserted that button between my action button directory and action button filter or message. And you'll notice I wanted to make sure that I didn't overwrite or delete any of the curly brackets. Click OK, save, and now working preview. Now you'll notice we have our new button here. I'm going to go ahead and do a search customers with BA. This will search all the customers that have BA in their fields. And now I can click Filter Directory. And you'll see now our report doesn't include everybody. It only includes the items that were in the grid that were filtered. It's still applying all the grouping and totaling and everything else that we want it to do, but it automatically makes it so only these records are going to show up in your report. And it's very convenient. So you'll notice we're saying window here, so let's go ahead and show you the power of putting everything in a central action JavaScript location. So if I want to put a different name for that window, I don't have to dig out the button. I can just go to Design, go to JavaScript Actions, double-click Filter Directory, which is going to confirm I'm doing the same thing. Go in here, and now I can scroll down and call this Filtered Directory. And adjust anything else. Maybe I want to make the width, height a little different. Anything that makes sense. Click OK, save, and OK. Click Working Preview. That will take us into it. I'm going to go ahead and do my filter one more time. And I'm going to click the Filter Directory button, and you'll now notice that we have a new window title there. So filtering is very powerful, and we're going to be showing you some other techniques that are also very handy. The techniques I've shown so far allow you to print reports based upon grid filters. But maybe you have a situation where you want to allow the users to select records ad hoc and include them into a report. And I'm going to show you the technique to do that now. And that technique includes a very powerful feature called the checkbox. So I'm going to go ahead and exit out of our filter directory here. I'm going to go back into Design, and then I'm going to make sure I have properties selected for this grid. Now what I'm going to do is up on the right hand side, I'm going to click Search Properties and type the word check. And you'll see that there is a property called Has Checkbox Select Column. So I'm going to click Find Property. Now what I'm going to do is click that to enable that. And now this will include a checkbox column in my grid. Let's go into Working Preview. And you'll notice now we have a checkbox here. And I can select individual records, or I can use this to select all records. So that now allows the user to, on the fly, designate certain records they would like. So let's go back into Design, and let's look at this Has Checkbox Select Column again. I'm going to go ahead and expand that, and you'll see that it has a couple properties here. The first is Checkbox Select Type, and it's set to single page. So I'm going to select that, and you'll see there are two options, single page and multiple pages. If single page is selected, then it will only allow you to select records on a single page. But if you click multiple pages, you can select records on multiple pages, and it will look at all those pages. And there's just a slight performance difference between the two. So I'm going to select multiple pages. So we have checkbox select column enabled, and we're setting multiple pages. Now when we're working with this, and I can select records here, and then I can go to the next page and select records there. If I go back to my first page, you'll notice that it remembers my checkbox selections. So it depends on your application which is more appropriate, but I tend to use the multi-page one. Now we want a next step, which is to filter these rows based upon what the person has selected. So let's go back into Design, and let's add a new Action JavaScript button that will do that. So I'm going to take our new methodology, and the first thing I'm going to do is actually create the Action JavaScript before we go in and create the button. So I'm going to click JavaScript Actions, and I'm going to add a new action here, and I'm going to go Filter Checked Rows. So I'm naming this new action Filter _ Checked _ Rows. Now that we have our new action created, let's go ahead and edit that action. So I'm going to click Edit Action. Again, it's asking me what do I want to take action on, either the grid or the detail view, and we want the grid part. And click OK. Now in this situation, there isn't a Action JavaScript that's available. There's actually a built-in function that you can run to make this happen because it's a client-side function. So in order to enable this, I click Text Mode. Now we're in our JavaScript mode. And the nice thing is you don't have to remember all of the different commands because built into the user interface is a help system. So if you'll notice down below, we have Insert Placeholder, but more importantly next to it, Insert Grid Method. Go ahead and select Insert Grid Method. And you will see that it brings up all of the different JavaScript commands that are enabled in the system by default. So all of these are available for you to use, and they're very, very powerful ones. So let's go ahead and type the word check, and you'll notice there is a second object here called Filtered Checked Rows. And on the right hand side you'll see a very detailed description of what it does, including optional arguments, And you'll also notice down here, there is an example that you can copy with some sample code. And some of the actions are a little more extensive, so they have some nice sample code for you to use. But I'm just going to go ahead and click there and click Insert. So now you'll notice that it is going to be running this little piece of JavaScript. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight the items in the square brackets and remove it because we don't need it. So all we need in here is this little piece of JavaScript that says gridObject.filterCheckedRows. And click Save. So now we have our new action, which is called filterCheckedRows. It's just going to run that little piece of JavaScript, and we're going to click OK. Now what I'd like to do is define my button to trigger that. So let's go to Properties, then search for buttons. You can either scroll down until you get to the action button location or use the search properties here. Let's go ahead and open up the action buttons by double clicking on it. And I'm going to add a new action button. And the way I do that is click Add Action Button. We'll call it Filter Checked Rows. And we're going to put on here Filter Checked Rows. So this is the name of the action. This is what the user is going to see. And again, I could use a hyperlink or an image if I decided. Click OK. Now that we have our new action, let's add our action JavaScript to it. So we'll click JavaScript, add new action, run action. So the same pattern we used before, we want to use the run action JavaScript. And then at this point, we select the action we want to run, which in our case is filter checked rows. And click OK. And I'm going to put in a description here, run filtered checked rows. And we're good to go. Now you might say, why don't I just go text mode, put it there? You can, but I'm going to show you a little bit more of why we centralize these kind of actions. So let's go ahead and click Save, and let's click OK. So now that we have that, let's do a save. Now that we've added our action button, let's go ahead and add it to the user interface so the user will see it. So I'm going to scroll down here till I get to the above grid location. I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to go ahead and insert that after my filter directory. So I'm going to go filter checked rows space. So I'm putting in my new action button so it'll display for the user here. And click OK. Now we have our action JavaScript, we have our button, we have it put on the user interface. We can click Save, and let's go to Working Preview. Okay, so let's give it a test. I'm going to select a few records here. I'm going to click Filter Checked Rows. And you'll notice that it only displays the rows that have been checked. Now, if I go ahead and uncheck these and click Filter Checked Rows, if no records are checked, it basically clears the filter and shows all items. Now, as we mentioned before, I can select a couple things on the first page. I'll go to the second page and select a few more items here. And I'm going to click Filter Checked Rows. And since we specified multi-page, it's going to look across every page, find those check rows, and put them together in here. Now I could go ahead and click my filter directory, and that will go ahead and do a report with only my checked rows. Now you may have a situation where you want to combine these, and that's what we'll do next, is show you how you can combine these behaviors together using Action JavaScript to create very powerful single-click steps. One of the handy features of using Action JavaScript is the ability to chain multiple items together. And I'd like to show a demonstration of that now. You'll notice that this time I can select a series of rows using the checkbox, then I do a filter checked rows, and then I can do a filter directory which will show that. And I'd like to combine the features of both of these into a single item. So I'm going to actually create a new button to show that so we keep our original ones the same. So let's go back into Design. Once you're into Design, as we've done before, I'm going to go into JavaScript Actions, and we'll be in JavaScript Action. Now I'm going to add a new action, and I'm going to go Filter and Show Directory. And OK. So we have that feature now in there, but nothing is going to happen until we add some more details. So if you notice, we already kind of have the capabilities here. So let's go into Filter Checked Rows. That's our first step. Again, it's going to confirm which part we're acting on. And you'll see that currently we just have some JavaScript. To save time, I'm going to go ahead and copy that. So I'm going to highlight it and then use this little icon to copy it onto my clipboard. And I'm going to cancel to remove or to go back out. Now I'm going to go into my Filter and Show directory. Going to double click on it to edit it. Going to leave the grid part and click OK. So before we went in text mode and pasted this JavaScript here, but we want to take a little different tack. I'm going to click Add New Action. Then I'm going to select the second item here, which is Ajax callbacks in JavaScript. And I'm going to select Inline JavaScript and click OK. So this opens up a JavaScript editor. I'm going to click into this white space right here. I'm going to right click and say Paste. So I'm just actually taking our original JavaScript and putting it in here. And then I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to say Filter Checked Rows. Click OK. So as you can see, we've kind of turned a piece of JavaScript into a action JavaScript action. So now we can add a second action. So let's go ahead and click Add New Action. I'm going to type the word report. I'm going to open a report label or letter layout. I'm going to select my report, in this case our customer directory. So I'm going to click there, select, and find customer directory from the report and click OK. So now in the report print genie, the first thing we've done is pointed to the report we'd like to run. Now as before, we would like to use the current grid filter. So let's go ahead and click current grid filter. Thus, when it runs this report, it's only going to send the records that are currently filtered in the grid. And click OK. As before, I'd like to make a couple adjustments. First, the initial view. Let's make that HTML. And we'll go ahead and leave the rest the same. And click OK. Print directory report. And click OK. So now we have our two actions, and they're going to operate together. Now, very important, because all of this executes and to a large degree is JavaScript, it's called asynchronous. So I really want to make sure that I've done the filter first. Once that's completed, then I do the report. And the way to ensure that will happen is down here in the left-hand corner, you'll see Run Actions Synchronously. And if you click the Explain, it gives you a little background on this. Let's go ahead and click that. So now we know that it's going to run this first task, and then once that is done, it's going to run our second task. And click Save. It hasn't turned green, but we know it is, so let's go ahead and click OK. So now we have our action JavaScript ready to go. Let's go ahead and create our new button. So let's go ahead and scroll back up till you get to the Action Buttons section. And let's go ahead and open that. So you see we have our current buttons, but I'm going to add a new button. And in order to do that, I click Add Action Button. And I'm going to say Filter and Print Directory. And down here, I'm going to go Filter and Print Directory. That will be the name of our new action button. Now that we've added our action button, we can go here to JavaScript. Let's go ahead and open that up. And in our case, we've already built the action JavaScript, so click Add New Action, select Run Action, and click OK. This will open up our Run an Action builder. We select our filter and show directory. So all this is going to do is trigger that action JavaScript. And once you've done that, click OK. I'm going to say run filter and print report. And click OK. And again, the reason here is you can see run action is very generic. What am I actually doing? I'm going to run that. And I might even tighten that up to give it the exact name of the action JavaScript I'm running. Let's go ahead and click Save. So we have our new button. We have our JavaScript that will trigger our new action JavaScript. And let's click OK. Now we have to add this to our user interface. So I'm going to scroll down here till I get back to the above grid location. And I'm going to double click above grid in the freeform edit regions to edit that. And as you can see, we're starting to add more buttons. So I'm going to scroll over here to the right. I'm going to put my entry point before my last button, which is action button message. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on filter and print directory and add another space just so it lines up a little nicer. So now you should have filter check rows and filter and print directory. Once you have that in there, click OK. Let's go ahead and save the grid. And let's do a working preview. So I'm going to go ahead and select a few rows here. And what I'm going to do is click my new filter and print directory. So as you can see, it's opened up my report and only included the checked items that have been filtered before it actually opened the report. By being able to chain multiple action items together or action JavaScript items together, you can create very powerful behaviors and make the life easier for your users. We've been able to expand our ability for our users to just print and get access to the information they want through filtering and reporting. And built into it is the ability, say for instance, to export to Excel. But sometimes people want to go directly to Excel. So I'm going to go ahead and close this window here. Now the grid does have a built-in export to Excel function. If you go to Design, go to Properties, and search Excel, you'll see that there's an export to Excel ASCII. And this, if you enable it, adds a little icon that allows you to export what's on the screen. But often you want to take more control of that process. So with that, we can use our same methodology to allow us to do that. So let's do that now. Let's first add our action JavaScript to do the exporting, then we'll add our button to be able to then execute that. So let's go to the JavaScript actions on the left-hand side. Let's create a new action and we'll go Export Excel and click OK. Now click Edit Action. We'll leave our grid part to be the part that we're working on and click OK. And this brings up our action JavaScript. Now I'm going to click Add New Action and I'm going to type the word Excel. And you'll see we have export to Excel or ASCII or advanced export to Excel, Word, or ASCII. I'm going to focus on the first one. We'll come back to this in a few minutes. So let's go ahead and click Export to Excel. Now this will ask us a few questions. First, what kind of export do we want? And as you can see, we can not only do Excel, but we can also do comma delimited, tab delimited, which is very nice for exporting to other systems. The next criteria is the source. And you'll see if you click and open that we have different ways to export. So as you can see, this gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of determining what is being exported. So you can do all fields in the query, because some may not be shown. You can do selected fields so you can get more refined, or you can even create your own custom filter. So it's very flexible, but I'm going to leave all fields in the component. You can determine a client-side file name. If you don't want to, it will create one yourself. You can actually also zip that file before it's downloaded. Now this is an important one. If you have hidden fields in your grid that are not shown, you can also export those. So for instance, a good example of that would be, say, for an ID field. It may not be important to show on the screen, but if you're going to import that into another system, you may need that. Also, the grid column headings. This is also very helpful when you're mapping during the import process, so you may want to keep those in there. You can also say what kind of record selection there is. And you'll see there's records in the current query, but we could say all records or the current record only. Up to you. You can also limit the amount. You can make that much larger. And you can also see there are some functions that you can perform after the export, before, etc. So you can take really detailed control of this process. We're going to keep it simple for now. So I'm going to click OK. I'm going to type export to Excel and click OK. So now we have our new export to Excel function. I'll click Save. So we're set up, ready to go, and we can now add our new button to our interface. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to scroll till I get to the action buttons. I'm going to double click to open that up. I'm going to add an action button. I'll call that Export to Excel. And for the text to show the user, I'm going to go Export to Excel. So they'll see a little nicer view. Click OK. And we have our new button there. Now we can go ahead and go into the JavaScript here. Select Add New Action. And the action we would like is Run Action. And click OK. This will open up our Run an Action dialog. I'm going to select that and select our new export underscore Excel, which we just created a few minutes ago. And click OK. Run export to Excel. And click OK. So now we know what this button will do. Click Save. Click OK. Now let's go ahead and add that to our user interface. I'm going to scroll down here till we get to the freeform edit region, and I'm going to double click that. And like I did before, I'm going to go ahead and scroll all the way over here till we get in front of our action button message. I'm going to put my insertion point there, and I'm going to double click this export to Excel. Now, one thing I haven't shown, but if you want to modify that button really quick without having to go back, you can click right here and it opens up this interface here. So you can even on the fly create a button and add it right into the header going through this process. I'm going to cancel, and I'm going to put my insertion there and put my export to Excel button in front of my message button. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to click Save. Click Working Preview. Now we have our grid and we have our new Export to Excel button. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And in a few moments, the system will generate the Excel file. Download it and open it up in Excel. Now, if you're on a web browser, it will download it to the downloads directory as an Excel file, and then you can open up within there. So in this case, since I'm in the development environment, I've opened up. But as you can see, it's bringing in all of our columns. It's bringing in the column headers and the detailed data, including the background customer ID, which could be used for a link field. So you have a lot of flexibility to create exactly the kind of export, and it's very valuable for most applications because inevitably there's a point where they need to get the data out to do other things with it. I'm going to return back to the Alpha environment, and I'm going to cover in our next section another method that uses a similar technique to export to Excel, but even has a few more powerful capabilities. As I mentioned earlier, there's another method to export to Excel or an ASCII file using Action JavaScript. And this actually allows you even more control over the process. So let me demonstrate that now. The first step we need to do is to create a report template for the data that we would like to export. So I'm going to go to Web Projects Control Panel, either clicking this button up here or down here. Now that I'm at the Web Projects Control Panel, I'm going to go to the left side over here, find the reports, and click on that. And now we can create a new report. So I'm going to create a new report. We're going to be adding this to the customer, so it's going to be based on customer information. So I'm going to click Create New Report. I'm going to select SQL Data Source, and we're going to just use a quick report to make this quick, and click OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and select my connection string, the source for this report, which is our database, by selecting CONN from the connection string name, and click Next. Now I'm going to go ahead and select which table. In our case, we want customers. So I'm going to go ahead, and I don't want all customers. I'm just going to make this simple. I'm going to customer ID, first name, last name, and company. And those are the only ones I want from there. As with other reports, I could pass this filtering, etc., and also define arguments, but we're going to keep it simple for now. So I'm going to click Finish. And it's asking me how many fields I should, or how many records I should bring back, and I'm going to go ahead and leave that 0 and bring them all back. It's a very small table. So now we're in our quick report Genie. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and select all of these by clicking and highlighting them, moving them over into the middle here, and let's do a preview. And you'll see it's bringing down the company, customer ID, first name, last name. So now I can say, hey, you know what, I want to change the order of these columns. So I'm going to go back to columns, and let's say I want the customer ID to be the first. Then let's say we want last name, then first name. So now when I do a preview, so again, customer ID, last name, first name, company. If I go to preview, you'll see now it's in the order I like. And I can do other things. For instance, I'm going to create a calculated field here. And one of the things that Alpha has is the ability for you to create calculated fields. So I'm going to go full name is equal to, and you'll notice it gives me, I'm going to say SQL data source last name plus colon space, or I'm sorry, comma space plus, and then I'm going to select the first name. So as you can see, what SQL data source is the fields that are in there. And I could select it right here, but I like doing it there. Oh, wrong one, so I'll delete that. And I'll select first name. So now I have a new field called full name that's going to take the last name and concatenate it with there. So let's go back to my columns, and you'll notice now that we have a new field here. So I can go ahead, click here, and I'll make that the last item. And I'm going to go ahead and save this. Let's save this right now as Excel export template. That way we know what it's going to be used for. So again, Excel export template, and click Save. Let's go ahead and do a preview. And I'm going to go ahead, and you'll see that I have customer ID, last name, first name, company, full name. Now you'll notice something here. Because of the way the report editor works, it's actually put a whole space here. I'll show you how to fix that. It's a little detail thing, but what's nice about the calculated fields, it uses all of Alpha's built-in capabilities. So I'm going to go back to calculated fields. You'll notice that this is too wide, so I'm going to go all trim, open quote, or open parentheses, close parentheses. So you can see I'm putting in what's called an XBasic command or expression. And what it's going to do is take this data value and trim all of the white space around it. So let's go ahead and save, and let's do a preview, and let's go up here, and now you can see that looks good. So another thing I may want to do is change like the headings. So like for instance, customer ID, I'm going to go back and just call that ID. So let's go into columns, select customer ID, and over here for the label, call it ID, and click Save. And now we do a preview, and you'll see our report looks pretty good. We have ID, last name, first name, company, and full name. So we've got it ready to go. This is the way we want to export our Excel data in exactly this format. So I'm going to click Save to make sure it's saved. Now that we've done that, we can return back to our grid. You can do that either clicking the grid if it's open on the screen here, or going back to the Web Project Control Panel and double-clicking on it to open. So I'm going to go back to Customer Grid. Let's add a new button. Let's go to Design. Click JavaScript Actions. That will open up our JavaScript actions. We'll add a new action here. And we're going to go Export Excel. And we'll just call it Report since we're using a report to do that. So again, export _ Excel _ report. And click OK. We have our new action JavaScript. We're going to go ahead and edit that action by clicking the button here. We are going to work on the grid part, so we're going to click OK. And now we're ready to add our new action. Click Add New Action. Type Excel. And you'll notice the second one is Advanced Export to Excel, Word, or HTML using a report definition. So we click OK. So first thing it's going to ask us is what report would we like to use for this export. So we'll go ahead and select that by clicking on the ellipsis button. Click Select, and we're going to use our Excel export template. And again, that's why I use the naming so it's easy to find the one that I want. And click OK. I'm going to go ahead and insert this current grid filter here because I want them to be able to export it, and depending on how they filter the grid, only export to Excel the items that they care about. So I'm going to put in that current grid filter and click OK. Now you can make a few other changes, the working message, you can bind arguments, and also some other client-side file name events, etc. So there's some real nice flexibility built into this, but we'll keep this as it is now. So we'll click OK. I'll go Export to Excel Report Format. So again, Export to Excel Report Format, and click OK. Now that we've created our action JavaScript, I can click Save here. And now we have Export _ Excel _ Report. Now we can go create our button. Click OK. Let's go back up to our action buttons here. We'll add our new button. Type Export to Excel Report. And we'll just go Export to Excel Report, just so it looks a little differently here. And of course, that could be any name you so choose. So let's go ahead and click that. We'll go ahead in our JavaScript here by making sure it's selected here. I'm going to click JavaScript, Add New Action. Now, since we've already created our action, we can just click Run Action, click OK. And the action we would like to use is Export Excel Report. So now I'll trigger that one. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to say Run Export Excel Report. That way I know exactly which action JavaScript I'm running. Makes it easier to understand. Click Save. Click OK. And we have our new action button. Now we just need to drop it onto the grid. So let's go ahead and scroll back down to the above grid location. Let's double click on that. You'll see our new one is here. So I'm going to scroll back over here, put my insertion point before the little curly bracket, and put our report in there with a space. And I'm very careful to make sure I don't put it inside the curly bracket because then that would confuse the system. And if I do that, you'll see some random text on the screen. You can quickly fix that. Click OK. We now got everything ready to go. Let's click Save and click Working Preview. So now we have our new button here. So I'm going to click to Export to Excel Report. And you'll see now our report has opened up in Excel automatically, and it is exactly the columns that were in my report, including our calculated field. So it's very powerful. You can use all of the report editor to do all the formatting, make it look good, do any kind of calculations, and then you just need to say export the records in the grid to that Excel file through that report. So I find this a very, very handy capability, and I use it often because it allows me to take complete and total control over how the data is exported, including the headers, the formatting, and using calculated fields. The Alpha Grid component has a lot of powerful searching capabilities. You can do quick keyword searches, you can build search environments to search on particular fields, and there's a lot of built-in capabilities. But there's actually a newer capability that was added called Advanced Search, and this search capability really dramatically increases the flexibility of the search capability for your users, specifically users who are doing, say, business intelligence operations where they need to be able to create and save ad hoc kind of queries versus preset items, which is very valuable because that solves issues for you because you don't have to anticipate every requirement. So I'm going to show a quick demonstration of how to do that. And in order to do so, I'm going to create a new grid so we can start with a fresh environment. So to do so, let's go to our Web Projects control panel by clicking the Web Projects button. Let's go to Web Components, and then let's select our grid component from the component creation menu. This will open up our component template. We're going to go ahead and just click OK to start with a blank one. This will open up our top level. We're really going to only use a read-only, so we're going to keep all the current settings. What I'd like you to do is click on Query. This will bring up the query page. Then select Connection Name. This will open up our Alpha DAO connection strings. Select CONN and click OK. Now that you've done that, you can click the Connect button, and that will actually connect to the database and load up the information. Let's click Select once again, and what we're going to do is create basically one on our customer. There's a lot of really good data in there, and let's say we want to data mine our customer information. So select Customer and click OK. This will now set up our table and our alias. We don't need a filter or order by, so we're good. Let's go to Fields, and let's select the following fields. Go ahead and select Customer ID through company. So Customer ID, first name, last name, and company. Then what I'd like you to do is go ahead and include the bill city. So select bill _ city. And then last but not least, I'd like you to select sales month to date through reorder KPI. So sales month to date, sales year to date, overall, purchasing, and reorder. And bring that over into our grid. So our grid now has customer ID, some customer information, the city they're in, and then some statistical information that we'll be able to use. Go ahead and click Save, and let's call this Customer Analysis _grid, because we'll use this to analyze our customers. So again, Customer Analysis _grid, and click Save. Once you've saved that, let's do a working preview, and you'll see we have our new grid. There's no searching, but it has the built-in sorting and other capabilities there. In our next step, we'll go ahead and add our new advanced search functionality to this grid. To add the advanced search, let's go back into the design environment, and then select Properties on the left-hand side under the grid tree. And then go over to the right, click Search Properties, and type the word Advanced. And you'll see it comes up, has Advanced Search feature. Click Find Property. This will take you down to the Advanced Search area. So I'm going to scroll this down a little bit here. So let's go ahead and enable that. And now you'll notice once we've enabled the Has Advanced Search feature, we have an advanced search definition. And this is where you define exactly what kind of parameters the user will have for searching. So let's go ahead and add one. Go ahead and select this. And you'll notice we're in our Advanced Search for Grid configuration window. And you can see we'll have a series of fields and some other customizations. So let's start by clicking Add Field. We'll add our first field in. This will bring up a search field selector. From the drop-down, what I'd like you to do is select Bill City. Now you'll notice in this case it's showing us not just the fields that are in our grid, but all the fields that are available on the underlying table, which is a very powerful feature. So let's go ahead and select bill_city. Then what I'd like you to do is select combo list, because this will allow us to create sort of a drop down of the different cities that are available. Makes life a little easier. So let's go ahead and click OK. So you'll notice we have bill city, control type combo list, and the label. And let's go ahead and change that label while we're here to billing city. Now you'll notice the type. Currently this is dynamic. We could have created a static set of cities, but we'll let the system populate this for us. So let's go to connection string, select the ellipsis button here, and let's select our CONN connection string and click OK. Next it's asking us which table. Let's go ahead and open that up. Now in our case, I'm just going to refer back to the customer table because we want to just grab the cities that are in the customer table. So select customer and click OK. Now it's asking us which field to display, and we're going to click that, and let's select bill city and click OK. Now this is optional. If you have a situation where you want the field to display and the field to actually search differently, sort of a foreign key situation, you can do this. So for instance, let's say you had a view that had cities in one column and then IDs in another of those cities. You could set this up from there. So let's go ahead and click OK. We've now set up our bill city as a combo list with the dynamic connection string here. We click OK. Now we click Save to save our updated grid, and let's go into working preview. So you'll see now we have a new capability. Above the grid we have a button here that says Add New Search Field. So let's go ahead and click that, and you'll notice that it's giving me a list of items. In our case we only have one field, so I'm going to add this field in called billing city. And you'll notice it now brings up an area where we can put the billing city. So versus our previous method where we had a fixed set of fields, you essentially allow the user to select which fields they want to do the search on. So let's go ahead from billing city, let's go ahead and click here, the drop down, and you'll notice that it dynamically pulled in a set of cities here. So I'm going to go ahead and select Berlin. And now that I've selected Berlin, I'm going to click Run Query. And you'll notice at this point, it then runs the query against the background and sets up and shows only that city. So if I change it to another city, let's say we go Belmont, and we click Run Query, then it runs that query. But the power of this is very extensive. So let's go ahead and show this. I'm going to go ahead and clear the search. So notice it cleared all the search. I'm going to click Add New Search Field, Billing City, and I'm going to go ahead and select Arlington from the billing city. And I'm going to click Run Query. So you'll notice that it brings up a series of items in Arlington. Now let's say I want to do it on multiple cities. I can click Add a New Search Field, Billing City, and you'll notice two things. One, it's added a new search area here, and it's also given us a criteria. So I'm going to select from billing city another billing city, say Boston. And you'll notice currently it says and, so I'm going to click on or. So now we're saying, please give me all cities in Arlington or Boston, and I can run the query. And you'll notice now it shows me a series of different fields. And you'll notice that it's giving me both the billing cities for Boston and Arlington in here. So you can see the person can create very, very, very powerful searches, and they can do it on an ad hoc basis, which is very powerful. Let's go ahead and add some other search fields to here. So we've only really added one, so let's go ahead and add a sales year to date. And let's go back into design. Go ahead and click Advanced Search. This will open up our Advanced Search for Grid configuration. And let's click another Add field. And let's add that field. In this case, we're selecting sales year to date. And it's asking us, well, what kind of control do we want? Well, in our case, we're just going to enter a text box because the person can enter in a number as far as the sales year to date. So let's go ahead and click OK. Now you'll notice we have sales year to date, control type, and label. This one's much simpler because we don't have other configuration. I'm going to go ahead and change this to sales year to date just to make it look a little nicer. So that's just the label that we'll show. And now I want to click OK. Now that we've added ours, let's go ahead and click Save and Working Preview. So now when I click Add Search Field, you'll see I have two of them here. So let's start by clicking Billing City. And from there, let's select our friends in Arlington and click Run Query. So you'll see now I have just the records from Arlington. Now I can go in and say I want to add a new search field, in this case sales year to date, and in that case I want to put in 100,000. Now very important, this button right here tells us how to filter. So I'm going to go ahead and click on there and show you. So as you can see, because this is a numeric, we have a series of things. We can say I want only things that are equal to 100,000. Maybe I want to do greater than. Let's do greater than or equal. And you'll notice we also have text ones like contains, starts with, etc. So let's do greater than or equal. So now I'm saying I want people in Arlington who have a sales year to date of greater than 100,000. And I'm going to run the query. And as you can see, it removed one of the items for our list, and here are our friends who have that. Let's say we want to look at people over 1 million. So I'm going to go ahead and add a 0 on here and run the query. Now you'll see we're down to a single record. Now, notice I'm using the Arlington and there. So now if I click OR and click Run Query, it's going to give me any record that has Arlington in the billing city and any record that has sales year to date over $1 million. So you'll notice this is Arlington, but it didn't meet it. And therefore, it's searching and finding on this field. In this case, it's finding on this field. So again, very flexible, a lot of power, and you can do some very fun things with it. Let's continue exploring some of the other capabilities. Let's go into Design. Let's go back into our advanced search definition, and let's add a new field here. And the field I'd like to add is company. So select company from the field name. Now what I'd like to do is I'm going to use what's called a suggest. So let's click Suggest and click OK. So this is very similar to the combo list. So you'll notice we have control type suggest, label company. I'm going to go ahead and change that to just say company name, so it's very clear. So modify label to say company name. For type, it's dynamic because we want to again grab a list from the database. So let's go ahead and modify that, much like we did our bill city. Click connection string, select CONN, and click OK. Now that we've done that, we're going to go to our table, and let's select our customer table because we're going to look inside there for the names. And click OK. The field name we need to search in, we select that, and we're looking for the company name. So select company name and click OK. Now you'll notice we have a search type. This search type is not the top level advanced search. This is when the person starts typing in to that field, should they look up the company with a starts with or contains. And in this case, I'd like to go ahead and go with a starts with. So go ahead and select that and click OK. Now that we've done that, let's go ahead and save and do a working preview. So let's go ahead and add a new search field. You'll see our new company name is now part of our search. So select company name. And in here, I can start typing a company name. So let's say I'm going to start typing Penta. And you'll see it calls the database and comes up with a list of items. Let me actually go back a little bit. Only one there. Let's try a different character. Oh. And last character. This is a good example. So I typed in SP, and basically it gave me a list of different company names that match that. So then I can select one of these. And then what I can do is click Run Query. Now the reason it gave me that is because if I look at the search criteria, the default is equal. But we could have done like a contains and other things. So the suggest list allows us to quickly suggest from a large number of items. Instead of doing a big drop-down box, you can do that. But you are not limited to do that. One other powerful option that's built into the system is something called QBF syntax. So let me go ahead and go back into design. I'm going to go ahead and add a new field here by double-clicking on the advanced search definition field. I'm going to click Add Field and select last name from the search field. And we're going to make that a text box. So again, we're selecting field name, last name, control type, text box. Click OK. Again, not too many options, so I'm just going to give it a nicer looking name or label to last name, and then we're going to click OK. Let's go ahead and save and go into working preview. I'm going to click Add New Search Field and select last name. So you can see we have a series of last names here. So I'm going to type in Rebo, and if I were to go ahead and click Run Query, it would do an equals. And again, I could do a starts with, etc. But I'm going to select a different object. I'm going to select this as QBF syntax. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go comma, and then I'm going to type in Feld. Then I'm going to click Run Query. And as you'll notice, it basically, within this text field, it said, give me Reba or Rebo or Feld, and a comma. And that's what's called QBF syntax. And it's very powerful, especially for someone who's more experienced and can do some power things, because there's a lot of features to do range searches, etc. And you can use that in combination with the advanced search to really put together amazing search capabilities. Now, to find out more about QBF, you can click Help, Open Documentation, and that will take you to the Alpha Anywhere documentation site, and then type QBF syntax and click the search button. And you'll notice we have a query by form search syntax. And here is a description of all the different capabilities you can do within QBF. And again, this is very much a very hardcore power feature. Given the advanced search, let me go back, we can kind of accomplish this by using just adding another last name and doing it from there. But for certain situations, if someone's more experienced, they can quickly type in a QBF syntax and run search and have the same impact as doing it by running multiple items. And this obviously will be a choice in regards to what your users are looking for. There's one last feature of the advanced search I'd like to show you, and that is the ability for the user to store their searches and be able to reload them. So let me go ahead and show you how to do that. I'm going to go back into design. I'm going to open up the advanced search definition, and down below I'm going to click Customize Search Options. And you'll notice that we have Allow Load Save Query and Allow Save Query. These are the settings that allow you to do this. And if I click on that, you'll see that it's going to ask us for a unique key. But there's a very critical thing. I'm going to go ahead and back out of this. We have to do something to our project before we can actually enable that. Alpha uses something called a repository table to store this kind of information. So I'm going to click Cancel. And what we're going to do first is we're going to go back in and set up the repository table. And then once we have the repository table, we'll come back and enable these features. So to do so, let's go to the Web Projects Control Panel. And then let's click Project Properties. This will open up our Project Properties site. And this is where all of your central information about your project is managed. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down till I get to Repository Settings. and click that. And this will open up a series of settings. And again, the idea is a repository is just a table in your database where Alpha knows how to store information. So go ahead and click the ellipsis button next to connection string. And this opens up our define repository table. First thing we want to do is click connection string and select that and click CONN and click OK. Now what we want to do is, if we had an existing repository table, then we could refer to it, but we don't have one. But Alpha has a nice feature. I'm just going to type the word repository here. And that's going to be the name of a repository table. It doesn't matter what name it is, because it's always going to have the same structure. But I tend to name it repository to make it simple. Now you'll notice down here we have a set of field maps. This defines the different fields that Alpha is expecting to be in that table. Well, the benefit is if you'll look down here, we have a little thing here that says create repository table. So Alpha will do this for us. Go ahead and click that. This opens up a notice giving you a heads up that it's going to create this table, and then click OK. And you'll notice the new table repository was created, and click OK. Now you'll notice that once we have defined the repository table, it's automatically created our fields in that database and mapped them for us. So all of that work was done. So let's go ahead and click OK. And now we have our repository setting set up, so we're good to go. Now let's go ahead and click OK to exit out of our web project properties. Let's go back into our customer analysis grid by clicking on our tab down below. Let's go back into our advanced search definition. Let's click on customize search options, and let's click allow load save query and allow save query. We want to be able to save and load them. Now you'll notice it's giving you a unique key, and that's because you may have multiple of these advanced search throughout your application. So let's go ahead and type this one as customer analysis. There we go. So I've got customer analysis as the name of the unique key, and then click OK. So now we've set up our ability to save and restore. Let's give it a test. Let's click OK, save our grid, and let's go into working preview. Now you'll notice something new. We have a new button here called Load Query. And if I click on that, you'll see at this time there are no saved queries because we haven't saved one yet. So click Cancel. So let's go ahead and add a query. Let's click Add New Search Field, Sales Year to Date. Let's type in 500,000, and over here we're going to say is greater than. And let's test this by clicking Run Query. And you'll see there are 40 records that it allowed me to come back because they matched that criteria. So let's go ahead and click Save Query. You'll notice it opens up a little area. I can say sales greater than 500,000 and Save Query. And you'll notice it's confirming that my query has been saved. So I'll click OK. Let's go ahead and clear our search. And now let's go ahead, instead of adding a new search field, let's load our query. So I'm going to click here. You'll notice that we have only a single query here, so I'll select that. And you'll notice that once I selected it, it immediately reset this. So let's do something more interesting. Let's go ahead and say, let's go ahead and do 250, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put in 250,000, and I'm going to say greater than. And I'm going to go ahead and save this query. And we're going to call this one sales greater than 250, 1, 2, 3. And save that query. And it's giving me a confirmation that the query is saved. So let's clear our search. Now when I go to load query, you'll notice that it shows me two different queries. So I can pick whichever I want, like this one. The moment I select it, it restores this query area, and then I can run that query. And you'll see the query is run. So this allows you to provide your users with a very simple way for them to create very powerful ad hoc queries and then save them. And this really enhances your ability to do any kind of business intelligence operations. And if you combine that with a set of reporting tools or reports and checkboxes, things like that we've shown already, that will allow you to then give them the power to create powerful front-end reporting to say, I want to look for this kind of information about my customer base or sales or whatever it happens to be, and then put it out in a very professional looking report environment for the users to consume. Up to this time, we have been mainly working with numeric and alphanumeric information. But Alpha has a wider range of image capabilities built into the grid component, and I'd like to demonstrate that now. To do so, we're going to create a new grid, and this will be a grid based on the employees. So if you could do the following, go ahead and go to the Web Projects Control Panel, make sure that's selected, and then when you're at the Web Projects Control Panel, select Grid Component from the New Component drop-down menu. Click OK to use a blank component, and that will open up our grid. So the first thing we need to do is set up our query. So we'll click on Query. Once you're at Query, click Select next to the connection name. And you'll see we have the connection, CONN. Click OK. After you've done that, click Connect. Now we can actually select the table we're going to work on. So click Select next to the table view name. And the table we would like to work on is Salesperson. And click OK. Now that we've selected our table, we can move into the fields. So let's click to the fields. And I'd like to go ahead and add all the fields to the grid. So I'm going to either click and shift click or click and drag all fields and click the right arrow to move it over into the selected area. Now we'll go ahead and save this as employee_grid and click Save. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the grid looks like. So you'll see we have basic employee information, and we have one column here called Avatar, and in that column is a file name. Now there are two key methods to storing image data. You can either store it in the table itself as what's called a blob, or you can store what's called an image reference. The preferred method is image reference because it allows a lot more flexibility on how you can manage your image information, and it reduces the overall size of your database to make it easier to back up, restore, etc. So what we want to do is convert this avatar into a displayed image. Now let me go ahead and show you something real quick. I'm going to go back to Web Projects Control Panel, and you'll notice we have a folder. So I'm going to click over here on Images, and I'm going to go into the Avatars folder. So you'll notice up here we're currently in a subfolder called Avatars, and that's where we're going to store all the image information. And you'll see we have a couple images already stored in there. I'm going to go ahead and return up to the top level, because you always want to make sure you're at the current folder, and go to the Web Components. But I just wanted to show you that we're actually storing the images in a subfolder that makes it easier to organize. So let's return to Employee Grid. When you're back to Employee Grid, let's click Design. Now you'll notice when we created this grid, it created the avatar as a label because it saw it as text data. And we need to change that information in the grid so that it presents an image rather than the text. So the first step is over Control Type, we change Label to Image. And there's a built-in image control that's available. And click OK. Now that we've done that, we have to make a few other settings to make sure that the image will show up properly. First, you want to embed the image in HTML. So go ahead and turn that on. Next, and very important, is the display format. And I'm going to go ahead and open the display format. Up to now, we've been using mainly predefined formats to format our currency, numbers, etc. But there's some actual very powerful special formats here. So I'm going to click on special formats. And you'll see we have a number of different special formats. And the one we want is image file reference. Now, if you actually had an image as a blob control in your database, then you would use something like image, but we're using an image file reference field. So go ahead and select that. So that now tells Alpha that we want to present this image or this information as an image, and the way it can figure out where that image is by saying, oh, it's an image file reference field. And go ahead and click OK. Now that we've done that, it now tells them that the name of this file here is an image file located on the disk, so it knows to pick it up and show it in the grid. But we have one other thing we need to do. You'll notice here we have image path. So as we noted before, we're not keeping the images at the root, we're actually in a subfolder. So we need to tell Alpha that information. So let's go ahead and go into image path. And you'll notice this gives you some little information. First is that if you had a fixed path on your system, but that's usually not happening. What we're doing is we're using what's called a relative file path. So in our case, it's going to be avatars/value.png. So type avatars/value. This is the subfolder the image is located in with a slash to tell it it's a relative. And in our case, we actually are storing both the name of the image and the .png, so we put in value. That's the actual value that's in this field. Versus you see up here where I could maybe just storing the file name without the extension. So again, avatars/value, and click OK. So we've specified it's an image field. We've specified that it's an image file reference field, meaning that the data is as a file reference, and we've told it where to locate that information on the actual system. So let's click Save, and let's do a working preview. And you'll notice now that instead of showing the image file name, it's actually showing the embedded image in here. So it's done the resolution of picking up the image on the disk and combining it with grid. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and you'll see that we have other employees without any image data in that column. So that's why you're not seeing that information here. And in the next segment, we'll show you how you can then, in the grid, upload the image data into the grid and store it successfully on the server. Now we'll add a button to be able to upload an image. But before we do it, we need to do a little housekeeping. And the reason why is file upload only works if we're in live preview or if we publish our solution to the local drive and run it there. I'd like to demonstrate in live preview, so we have to do this small little task. So please follow along with me. Step 1 is go to Web Projects Control Panel. When you're on the Web Projects Control Panel, locate the small folder icon on the icon bar up top and click this. What this does is actually open the folder where your project files are located at. So you can see here's my path, Alpha103, my web project's default web project, and you can see in here we have our different grids, etc. And most importantly, we have a folder here called avatars. So go ahead and right click on that and copy that folder. So now we've copied that folder with the enclosed images we already had. Then what I'd like you to do is go to your C drive. So click on C drive. When you go to C drive, you'll see there's a folder called A5 WebRoot. This was created by Alpha when you installed the system. And this is where it publishes and performs any of your local tasks out of. So let's go ahead and double click on A5 WebRoot. Yours may look a little differently. And what I'd like you to do is locate the live preview folder. This is when you click that live preview, Alpha actually sends the files to this folder to run and display for you in the system. And therefore, when you are operating in live preview, everything that you need needs to be located here. So let's go ahead and double click on Live Preview. Then what I'd like you to do is anywhere in the white space, right click and say Paste. And you'll notice what we've done is we've copied the avatars folder, including the base images, out of our project area and into our Live Preview. And this is important because when we actually run in Live Preview, we're going to be doing two things. We're going to be displaying the images out of this folder, and secondly, when we upload images, we're going to actually put them into this folder. So it's an environmental issue here. But make sure this step is done before we take the next steps. And if you need to, pause, review, and make sure you have your avatars folder in your A5 WebRoot Live Preview folder. Once that's done, click Close. Now we're back in the Alpha environment, and let's go to Employee Grid. Now once you're in the Employee Grid, click Design. So in order to do an image upload, we're going to use Action JavaScript. So using our standard techniques, the first thing I want to do is actually create my JavaScript action over here, and then I can add a button here to activate that Action JavaScript. This is very similar to the process we used when we were using action buttons on the Properties field. I'm going to click JavaScript Actions. This opens up our Define JavaScript Actions. Click Add New Action, and let's call this Image File Upload. Once you have Image File Upload, go ahead and click OK. Notice this is giving us the warning saying we've created the action, but it's not been defined. And click OK. Now that we've defined our empty action, we can click Edit Action. And this opens up our Action JavaScript Builder. So click Add New Action and type the word image. And you'll notice we have a specific action called Image Upload. And click OK. And this opens up our image upload. This is where we do all the settings to give it to tell the Action JavaScript how to handle this. So first, you can decide if it's a desktop or mobile. In our case, it's a desktop, so we'll leave it as desktop. The next item here is image field, so I'm going to go ahead and click that, and then it's asking me which control actually holds the image. And let's click Avatar, and click OK. The next step we want to do is notice we have the upload target is server. There is an option to do Amazon S3, which we'll cover in a future training, but for now we're uploading it to our local server here. But click Upload Folder, and in here we want to type avatars, and that is the folder name we will store this information in. And when we go into Live Preview, that's why we put that folder there. You have an option here to say whether the system should overwrite an existing You have a option here that says File Exist Action, whether you want to overwrite or rename it, and you can decide appropriately. If it's rename, the system will automatically add an extension like a 1.2 on it to make sure that you don't overwrite existing files. The next one's very important. This is called the Stored File Name Transformation Expression. This is called the Stored File Name Transformation Expression. And this is how we tell Alpha how we want that image upload file name to be stored in that column. So let's go ahead and open that up. And you'll see this is what a regular file path is. And if we insert our sample expression by clicking that, and what we're looking for is short file name. So again, just click Insert Sample Expression and put short file name. So now what will happen is it will take this and turn it into just the file name, which includes the file name and the extension. If you selected, by the way, file name, it would do the whole path, but we want it relative, so we want short file name. That's how we're storing it in the table. And click OK. I'm going to go ahead and increase the maximum file size just so we don't have any problems there by adding a 0 onto that. And you can set limits on it. You can also allow certain file names, etc., depending on your file requirements. So let's go ahead and click OK. And we'll go image file upload. So I'm just giving a comment for this action JavaScript. So now we've created our action JavaScript, we can now go into our grid and create a button that's going to execute this action JavaScript. So let's click Save. And then we can now click Save to save our fully set up action JavaScript. Now, very important, right now, when we created this grid was read-only. And in order for us to be able to actually edit the grid and insert a new file name and save it, we need to turn this into an editable grid. So what I'd like you to do is just click here, Editable. And what I'd like you to do is, let's go ahead and disable ID. So we want all the different columns to be editable, but we don't want ID to be editable because that's automatically generated by the system. So go ahead and click OK. And you'll notice the system transforms the fields from labels into text boxes. And it opens up and adds a new area here called Update Settings. Now the last step, we'll click on Date of Birth. Let's click Insert. And what we want to do is insert, in our case, a button here. You could also use an image or a link, whatever you prefer in the future. So let's click Button. That adds a button. I'm going to change the button label to Upload Image. So that way it's very clear what that button will do to the user. And click OK. Now what we need to do is actually tell it what it should do. So we'll go here to the on-click event. So we've added the button. And as you can see, there's different events, but what we're looking for is the on-click event. So select on-click and either double-click on it or click the ellipsis button to open it up. This will bring us back to our action JavaScript, and I'm going to click Add New Action. Our case, we already have our action, so we're going to run that action. Click OK. And now we specify our action by clicking this drop-down box, and we only have one action here, which is image file upload. And then click OK. Now it's asking us for a comment, so I'm going to say run action image file upload. And click OK. And click Save. Now again, the reason I went and did the JavaScript action is because down the road we may need to edit that to add maybe a next step. Say for instance, after the image is uploaded, we want to trigger an email and send that image to someone to get approval or something like that. And it's always good to have all your JavaScript actions in one place. So let's test this. Click Save. Let's do working preview. Now instead of working preview, click live preview. And if you get a message saying start your server, it could be you hadn't restarted it, go ahead and accept the start server and come back. But then at that point, click full preview. So you'll notice now we have our grid. It looks a little differently because we have editable items here, but you will notice that it is showing our avatar. And the reason it's doing that is it's running in that live preview folder, and in there is an avatars folder. It's pulling these images out. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and scroll down till we get to Stefa Cottrell. Go ahead and select that row and scroll to the right. With that row selected, now click Upload Image. Let's click our file. Now, what I'd like you to do is when you click Upload File, I would like you to navigate to where you have the Alpha103 training files. And in there is a folder called Avatars. And this folder has all of the different individuals. And find Stefa. And select Stefa and click Open. You'll notice then the file name is put here, and we click Upload. And you'll now notice that our new image has been uploaded. It's rendering it as an image, so the image is actually a file, and behind there it's stored in the database that image name, but it's taken it and shown it as an image here. In our next section, we're going to actually show you how you can also download images that have been stored on your server. We've added the ability to upload and store image files on the server and also save that information in the database using a grid. But you can also download files from the server using a similar technique. And we'll go ahead and do that now. So enter the design environment, and I'm going to go here and put a new button here. So I'm going to click on my current button. I'm going to click Insert Button and then click OK. And I'm going to change this button label to be Download. So I'll go Download and click OK. So as we did before, I would like to make sure that all of my action JavaScript is in one location. So I'm going to go over here to JavaScript Actions, and I'm going to add a new action. And I'm going to call that Image File Download. And click OK. This will give us the warning that we need to set up our action, and click OK. So now we can edit this action, and we can add our new action by clicking Add New Action here. As we did before, let's type the word file, and you'll notice we have a file download, and click OK. This is a much simpler interface because basically first we're going to specify the type. So click the type here by clicking on the ellipsis button, and you'll notice there are a number of different options, and this is very flexible. We're going to grab the second one, which is grid contains a file name. But you could also get it through JavaScript, through an AJAX callback, even download it from Amazon S3 storage. But we'd like grid field contains a file name. And click OK. Now what the system is asking us is what is the field name that holds the file name? And we'll select Avatar. Now it's asking us which folder. And as we showed before, we actually store these in a subfolder. So I'm going to click here and go Avatars. That is the subfolder in which it is located at. We can set the client-side file name. I'm going to leave it as is, but you can take action on that and modify that as you see fit. We also have a situation where if a file not found, there's a couple options. You can display the message or just do nothing. Let's go ahead and click OK now, and we'll go File, Download for the action comment, and click OK. We've now finished setting up our action JavaScript, so we can click Save, and we're done here, so we can click OK. Now we can return back to our button and edit the onClick event. So let's edit the onClick event. As we did before, let's click Add New Action. Select Run Action, since we're going to be triggering that action we just created, and click OK. This will ask us which action do we want to run, and we're going to select Image File Download. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. We're going to go Run Action Image File Download and click OK. So now we've successfully set up our onClick event, so we can click Save. We can save this. We're ready to go ahead and test this out. So I want to show you something. I'm going to go into Working Preview here. And you notice that Avatar isn't showing here, but in future releases, it will be showing here. There's some adjustments that are being made. But I'm going to go ahead and click Download here. And you'll notice that it gives me an error saying the file download is not supported when you're in desktop mode. So click OK. So we need to do this in live preview to fully check it out. So I'm going to click here Live Preview. I'm going to do a full preview. Notice if your development server wasn't running, it's going to ask you to do so. Now you'll notice it is showing me my images here. I'm going to go over here to download. Now watch when I click download, I'm going to get an error. And this error is something that was recently added that gives you a heads up that if we embed the images in the HTML, they can't be downloaded. It's just a matter of the structure of how the grid works. So let's go ahead and click OK and go back into Design, select Avatar, and find where it has embed image to HTML and turn that off. And in general, you really don't need to embed the images in the HTML, so I would generally just leave that off going forward. So now let's go ahead and go back to live preview. I'm going to do a full preview. And now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click download. And you'll notice now it's asking me, oh, here's the name of the image, and do you want to go ahead and open it or save it? And if you're in a browser environment, instead of this file download situation, you'll get the standard browser file download action where it starts appearing in the left corner for Chrome and gives you an update and things like that. So very easy to do it. Now, if you did not get this here and you got an error message, and I'm showing that on the screen now, this is because there was a defect in the grid that we found during the training development process and has since been fixed. So go ahead and try and download the latest pre-release, and I'll put a note on which one it is fixed in. And that should be able to resolve your issue because there was just some minor little glitch in the system here. So that wraps up our image download capability. The key things I wanted to cover was first, make sure that your embed image is off. Also do your testing in live preview. And last but not least is that if you do see that error message, it's already been resolved in a newer release of Alpha for you to address. Now that we have our Google Map API key, you can add it to Alpha so it can be used by the grid for showing the map. So the first step is to go to the Web Projects Control Panel, select Project Properties, and then scroll down until you get to the Google Maps API key. Put your insertion point there and paste your key here. Once you've done that, you now can click OK. The benefit of that is that when you create any controls that need to reference a Google map, it can look in the project properties and get that information there. And if you ever have to change that API key, you can do it in one place. So let's go ahead and create our grid. Select Create a New Grid Component from the drop-down menu. We will use a blank grid component, so click OK. And let's go ahead and do a query, and then select and do connection, and click Connect. Once you've connected, we can now select our table, so click the Select button. And in our case, we're going to be using the customer table in our database. So select customer, click OK. And now we can return to the fields section and add our fields into the grid. So the items I'd like to add are company. Let's go ahead and add bill address through country because we want to show the address information. And last but not least, go ahead and add latitude and longitude and add those there. That way we get to see all the different information that's available. We don't need to make this grid editable since it's more for display purposes, but you could, if you wanted to, add this to be an editable grid. Now before we get started, I also want to do some interesting searching and sorting. So let's go to component type and let's enable our search part. So click search part. And you'll notice when we do that, we now have a display of our search over here, and more importantly on the left hand side we have our search fields. So let's go ahead and add a few search fields in there. So let's click fields. So let's add some sample fields. The first field I'd like to add is bill city. Then what I'd like to do is add sales month to date and sales year to date. So we have our bill city, sales month to date, and sales year to date. For bill city, let's select that. And currently it's a text box. So now we're going to modify that to a drop-down box and click OK. And now that you've done that, we can actually modify the choices for this drop-down box. So let's click choices here and open that up. In our case, we're going to use what's called a dynamic, so it will populate from the database. So click dynamic. We'll first change the data source type from DBF table to Alpha DAO. We can now select the connection string, and once you have the connection string dialog open, click CONN and click OK. Now we'll set up our SQL select statement. The table we would like to look is our customer table. Click OK. And the field we would like to display is Bill City. We don't need to display another, or rather we don't need to store another value, so we'll leave it as Bill City. And now click OK. So now we've set it up for our Bill City. Next, we can now do some interesting things with sales month to date and sales year to date. What I'd like to do is, normally you would enter a value in there, but what I'd like to do is a range search. So over here on the right, after you've selected sales month to date, enable range search. And then go to sales year to date and enable range search. So now we have some good fields to search on in our grid. Let's go ahead and save this, and we'll call it customer map underscore grid. So customer map underscore grid, and click save. So let's do a quick test before we add our map. Click working preview. You'll notice we have our search information up top in our grid here. So I'll select from Bill City, and let's say we select Buffalo and click search, and we'll see our Buffalo here. We can also select, say, Arlington, and see all the cities in that area. Now you'll notice since we set range searches, we can now go sales year to date. So I'm going to clear the search criteria first, and I'm going to say give me all people who have sales between 200,000 and 500,000 in year to date sales, and click search. So as you can see, it's done a search, it's reduced it to 15 records, and we're seeing a subset of our customers that make between 200,000 and 500,000 in purchases per year. Let's do a couple quick cleanup things. Let's get rid of this sort by records per page, not really necessary, and allow this search to be hidden so it doesn't take up as much space. So let's go to design. To make those modifications, click on properties. And over here, let's first say the enable show hide of search part. Let's enable that. And let's make our initial state to be closed. Once you've done that, let's scroll down here to the sort options. Let's uncheck that. And for records per page, uncheck that. And save our grid. And now we're ready to start adding our map to our grid. To add our map to the grid control, we're going to use something called an alternative view. So when you're at the properties for the grid, and make sure you're on this properties versus the search properties, click search properties and type the word alternative. And you'll notice there is one called has alternative views, and click find property. This will bring you down to the alternative views area and enable that. Once you've enabled that, you'll see a new property called alternative views definition, and let's go ahead and open that up. So as you can see, currently there are no alternative views, so we're going to add an alternative view in. So click alternative view. The first step we're going to do is define what kind of alternative view it is, and click select. As you can see, there are three: chart, custom, Google Map. We want Google Map, and click OK. Now we need to specify an ID for it, so I'm going to just type map, and then also a label is needed for the user, and I'm going to type customer map. So your alternative view type should be Google Map, your ID map, and your label customer map, and click OK. Now that you've done that, you'll see that a set of alternative view properties are now available, and we're going to go ahead and use this. So the first thing I want to do is make my map. So now that we've added our alternative view, there are now a set of properties we can set for this map view. So let's do that. First thing I'm going to do is go to map height and increase that to 600 pixels. Then on the width, I'm going to increase that to 800 pixels. You'll notice there's a Google Map API key location, and you'll notice in the text down below it says, if that's empty, it will look at the project properties. Now I'd like you to scroll down, and you'll see here the marker properties. So the first is type. And as you can see, there are three types: address, location, and auto. In our case, let's start with address. In our case, let's click location. And the reason why is we have already calculated the latitude and longitude for each location, and that's in our data table. So now it's asking us, where does it get the latitude information? So you select that. This will open up our edit expression, and down below you'll see insert field. So click insert field, scroll down until you find latitude. Notice this will look up the table data for latitude and use that for that value. So click OK. Let's do the same thing for longitude. Let's select that. This will also bring up our expression builder. We can click insert field, scroll down, and select longitude. And this will pull that column into here to identify the longitude for each record. Click OK. You'll notice we also have title, info, and layer. Let's go ahead and set our title expression. So click there. And for our title, we'll just use the customer name. So click insert field, company. And that's what we'll display in the title. And click OK. There are some other settings that we'll come back to in a little bit. So we have map height 600 with 800. And we have our type of location, latitude, longitude, and title expression set using data from the table itself. Now you can click OK, and we've set up our alternative view definition. Click Save to save your grid, and click Working Preview to see our changes. So now you'll see we have two tabs on our grid. The first tab says Grid View, which shows our traditional grid. We also have our search area up top, but now we have a second tab, an alternative view of our grid, and it's called Customer Map. So I'm going to click on Customer Map. And this will render a map showing the current items in the grid on the map. And if I hover over the pin, you'll see that the company name is now displayed as I move over each pin. Now if I go back to Grid View, and let's go ahead and just click the Next to load the next set of fields. And you'll notice we have our new set of items here. Let's go back to our customer map, and you'll now see we have that different set of items shown in our map. So the alternative view is going to link to what's in the grid view. So let's go back into Grid View, and I'm going to go ahead and click here to search. And you'll see we have a search capability. So I'm going to search first in the Bill City, and I'm going to select Arlington. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to my search button, click Search to execute that search. And now what I'm going to do is go to Customer Map, and you'll see that the system has shown all of the items that have a city type of Arlington. And you'll notice we have the full ability to zoom in and out using the Google Map. We can move it around. We can also display it as satellite versus map. All those features are available. I'm going to go ahead and clear our search criteria. And I'm going to go up here and go into sales year to date. And I'm going to put from $1 million to $2 million. And click Search. Now you'll see I have a set of items here. I can go into my customer map, and now I'm seeing all of my high volume customers. I can actually go in here and say, you know what, I want to see even more. So I'm going to go up here and go anybody over $1.5 million, click search. Let's go 2. And you'll see we have 3 customers. I go to my customer map, and now we can see the locations of those. So bottom line is whatever's shown in the grid view is shown in the customer map. You'll notice in our grid view, and I'm going to go ahead and clear my search, I currently have 10 records per page. So I'm going to go ahead and select 50 records. And now I'm going to go to customer map, and you'll see it renders all of those 50 records. So you can adjust them accordingly. Now if I click on an item, you'll see at this point it doesn't display anything, but that's a very powerful capability that we're going to show in the next section. So let's add some more items to our map to make it more impactful for our user. Let's go back to design. I'm going to go in here and go to the properties section, and I'm going to search for alternative view till we get to the alternative views definition. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and let's open up our alternative views definition. And as you can see, we have our current map. So the first thing I like to do is add a little bit more information. So I'm going to scroll down here, and you'll see at this time we have the latitude, longitude, and tidal expression. So let's make this tidal expression a little bit more interesting. I'm going to go ahead and click on this to open that up, and you can see we see table.data company. But this is an expression, so we can actually use expressions to increase this. So I can go plus, and then in quotes, space phone, colon, plus, and then I can insert the phone field here. So basically now it's going to grab the current company, add this text phone, and the table data phone together. And I'm going to click OK. Now also when we clicked on it, it showed an info box, but it was empty. So let's go ahead and address that. Now we could enter an expression, but in this case I'm going to use a template. We're actually going to show more data, and we want a little more control over what's shown. So click on template. And the template works basically the same. Right here is HTML, but we can insert fields into it. So let me go ahead and insert first company, and this is static text, and I'm going to insert a field here. And I'm going to insert company. Then I'm going to put a left caret BR, and notice it's bringing up our HTML type head. So I want to put a line break after that. I'm now going to type phone, and let's insert our phone field into it right after there. And let's do also the following. Let's put in here, actually put in sales year to date, put a colon, and let's insert that field also. And I'm going to put another break, and then sales month to date, and insert that field. Now there's one critical difference between an expression and a template. And you can click right here and it explains it. If you are going to use some table data, you have to enclose it in curly brackets. Otherwise what will happen is it won't put out the correct information. So we actually have to go back in here and put curly brackets around each of these items. And make sure you put it outside and completely around the different items. Now the reason we do that is when Alpha puts this together, it treats this, and it is in a template format, it treats this as static text, but anything inside of a curly bracket is treated as evaluated, meaning it's going to go in there and look at it and come up with that information. And in fact, there's some very powerful capabilities. If you open this up and show it, where you can actually do math in there because it takes what's inside these curly brackets and evaluates it. So as you can see down here, you're doing something where they're doing the uppercase for the last name, adding a comma, and doing all that within the curly brackets. If you don't put those curly brackets, you'll actually see this text in the info box. Let's go ahead and click OK. And let's go ahead and test our new item here. Click OK to save that. Save and click Working Preview. Now I'll enter the customer map. And now when I click on an item, you'll notice that it brings up a very nice looking presentation showing me the company, the phone, and inserting the sales year to date and month to date. And you'll notice we're missing some of the formatting on these numbers, but using the template methodology, we can insert the formatting in that template so that it comes out correctly. And we can also do things like add bold on these items to make them a little bit more readable. I want to explore and show you one other thing. Let's go into Design, and let's go back into our alternative views definition. And I'm going to scroll down until we reach our info box expression. And I'm going to click on there. So again, this is pure HTML, and these can be formatted. So I could put a formula around this sales year to date to format it like a numeric value. Now, a very interesting capability is the ability to generate all of this information through an XBasic function. So if I were to select this, then it would allow me to define a function that is called for each row in my grid. And in that function, I could calculate this HTML, including all the data, and send it back. And this is very powerful because in there, you're not limited to just information in the grid, i.e., I'm inserting the fields, but these are the fields in my current grid. I could be doing things like lookups, web calls, web API calls, etc. So it's very, very powerful, and that's using the XBasic function capability there. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And in our next section, we'll explore a few more really powerful features built into the mapping technology. There are a couple other features I'd like to highlight on the map. First, there's something called a layer expression. And what you can do is you can segment your items on the map into different layers, and this is dynamic. So for instance, we could segment them by high volume purchasers versus low volume purchasers. And then there are functions that allow you to show only layers at a time. And this is very powerful because that allows the user to say, okay, I want to only see this group of people or these group of records on the map at any one time. We can also add some animation. So you can have the little pins bounce or drop onto there. The other, which is very powerful, is currently, you notice when we clicked on an action, it does an open info box. You can also have it open a detail view if your grid has a detail view. So you can kind of combine the ability to show things on a map with editing that data by using that methodology. And you can also create custom actions where if someone clicks on a pin, you could actually trigger some action JavaScript to do something else. Now the last one I like to show is called marker icons, and let's give you a demonstration of that. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click here, and this opens up a dynamic map marker images, and this is very similar to our conditional formatting. So I'm going to click Add Condition, and I'm going to insert field name sales year to date. And I'm going to create an expression. In this case, if they're over $1 million, then what I would like to do is use a specific image on the map. So I'm going to click Select. We could use a built-in image or an image file in your web project. I'm going to go ahead and use built-in image. So I'm going to select that. And let's go ahead and select the alpha symbol for people who are over $1 million. And then click Insert. And you'll see it puts the name of that here, and click OK. So that's our first condition. So let's click OK. Now we can add a second condition. So I'll click Add Condition. I'm going to insert the same field name, and I'm going to go less than $1 million. Actually, let's do less than or equal. And then what I'd like to do is select a different image for those individuals who are less than $1 million. So I'm going to select here. And I'll scroll down a little bit here. And let's just grab that image right there. And it's a concentric pie. And click OK. And then once you have set up our sales year to date less than or equal to $1 million and our image, click OK. And we have our two different conditions. And click OK. Now that we've done that, we can click OK for our alternative view builder. Save our grid. And let's do a working preview. Now note when I click Customer Map, you'll see that the map icons now are different. So let me go ahead and scroll in. We'll go over here. And you'll see we have our different icons. I can click on this one, and you'll notice the sales year to date is 844. If I go over here and click on that one, you'll see they're over $1 million. So you can add as many conditions as you want and have a whole series of different icons that signify something to the user, which could really provide them some really good value. Now I used built-in images, and so they're kind of small. There are a ton of really nice looking map pins that are available on the net that you can bring down. And you can also create your own because these are basically small image files. And I find that this is one of the more interesting aspects, and when you use this capabilities, your users are really going to enjoy using the map capability. Between the ability to see it on the map, see different icons, and also have dynamic information that's available, it really, really is a powerful way to improve your apps very quickly. Thank you so much for taking the Alpha103 Advanced Grids with Alpha Anywhere course. In this course, we have covered the following: grouping records in the grid component and adding summary information to the groups, formatting your grid based on the data in the grid, adding row and field level color formatting to bring life to that grid data, adding Alpha Anywhere action buttons to the grid that allow your users to execute actions on the data in the grid, adding a checkbox column to your grid and interacting with the items checked on the grid, leveraging the advanced search functionality to allow your users to use business intelligence style searching, display, upload, and download image data directly inside your grid component, mapping your data without code using the built-in grid mapping feature. You now have a choice in your Giant Killer Training Alpha Anywhere training journey. If you haven't taken the Alpha105 security course, you can learn how to protect your resources and data in your web application by using the integrated Alpha Anywhere security system. If you would like to focus on the UX component to build powerful web forms, you can take Alpha104, Advanced UX Components with Alpha Anywhere. These courses are built to be able to be taken in any order as you see fit. You can explore our more advanced courses on topics such as consuming and publishing web services, Alpha 300, or building web dashboards using Alpha Anywhere, Alpha 106. Thank you again for taking this course.